everybody, welcome back to D&J's.
Hey everyone, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. I am Justorian, and this is
Dereker. Hello, friends. How are we all doing today?
I'm doing all right. It's been a long day, very long day. Work, and then I got home, and then I had to make dinner, and then we had soccer practice to go to. And I'm sure there was a bunch of shit in between there that I'm just now forgetting. But yeah, you?
Not too bad. Got home and had a beer, sat on the deck, had another beer. I'm sitting here in the closet. It's hot as balls, and my beer's sweating about as profusely as I am.
Well, that's good.
But I get to try out my new internet here, so that's exciting. It seems to be working better than my other shit internet worked, so that's good.
Oh, you got the Verizon little white box thing?
I did. So even if it doesn't work great, in theory, the speed should be like twice as fast for about a third the price of what I was paying.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Yeah, because
even
if
if it's
$25 a month.
If you do auto pay, so it's like 35 otherwise, which is not a big
I
deal.
do the auto pay. Do you want me to read the epigraph?
Well, we got to do our patron shout out here.
Gotcha. Yes, I'm not used to that. I'm not used to that. Like, people pay for our content. It hasn't sunk in yet.
It is an odd thing since we're just like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like we're just two regular guys reading the same book at the same time, which is a lot of fun. And, it's not like either of us have a PhD in like English literature or something. We're just two everyday normal guys here.
Yeah, right. Yeah. This is definitely not what I imagined I would be doing in my mid-30s.
Hey, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm grateful for all the friends that we have doing this. It's been a lot of fun. But yeah, we'll thank our patrons here. Jan, Picker of Pies. It was a lot of fun having him on. I guess really what was just a few days ago at this point.
Right, yeah.
But that went really well. It was a lot of fun. Luciana, I did a nickname for you. Luciana, Our Lady of Fantasy. And then we have Ryan the Topological, and our newest, Damien. He's been with us here for 2 weeks now. Damien, the Rock in the Rock with the Faces, Rock in the Faces, Faces in the Rock.
Faces in the Rock. Yeah.
There we go. So thank you to our 4 patrons. We're very happy to have you aboard here.
Yes. Thank you very much. We are.
And your names are jotted down in our Book of the Fallen. So may the odds ever be in your favor there.
Very nice. Very well done, sir. Yes. Cool. Well, this is chapter 16 of Stephen Erickson's Deadhouse case. This is our 20th episode in this series, but our 52nd overall, which is crazy to think of. I feel like we just recorded our 50th.
Which we kind of did.
But, people aren't going to know that for 3 more weeks when this episode airs. So, yeah.
Well, they'll know it's the 50th when we release it, and I put something out about it.
I got to stop talking about stuff that's current, because by the time that they get to listen to this episode, they're going to be like, Justin, the 50th episode came out 2 weeks ago. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
So
we're living in the past, present, and future at the same time.
Right. Ooh. It's like Raraku's past is shaping us too.
Damn. I did not. That was totally unintentional on my part. Nice dig.
I do what I can. I do what I can. Here comes
there you go.
Graph from Mr. Dereker. Am I reading it or are you?
Well, I don't know. If we want to our alternating format here, I can take it.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Tremolor, the throne of sand, is said to lie within Raraku, a house of the Azath. It stands alone on uprooted soil, where all tracks are ghosts, and every ghost leads to Tremolor's door. Patterns in the Azath, the nameless ones.
I like that epigraph. I really do.
I think my favorite one is still from a couple chapters ago, where it was talking about Shaik and what it said something about the desert draws breath and everything was still or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think that was my favorite so far.
Yeah, that one was a good one. All right, well, here we go. Here's section 1. For as far as Duiker could see, east and west, the cedar forest was filled with butterflies. Along the Vathar River's gutted edge were ferns and skeletal trees. The ferns and the skeletal trees formed a barrier of sorts, except for the trader track which made its way to the river. Duiker had broken away from the chain and rode up a low hilltop. He watched the chain of dogs from this hilltop. Duiker's gaze broke from the train, and he began to observe his surroundings on the hilltop. Large boulders had been placed in a circular design. He had seen such formations, but he couldn't remember from where. An unease hung about the air. Corporal List was galloping up to where Duiker was sitting. The historian could not help but notice that List was not letting his foot heal, as he kept using it prematurely. As List reined into Duiker, the historian called him a fool. List agrees that he is a fool, and then explains to Duiker that the rearguard's western flank had spotted Corbelow Dom's lead cavalry. Duiker voiced out loud, "West? He plans to reach the river before us, just like Coltane predicted." List wipes sweat from his brow and tells the historian that yes, it was at least 30 companies of cavalry. Duiker comes to the realization that they cannot push through 30 companies of soldiers to gain the ford. Duiker trailed off on that thought, and List continued to say that yes, but on top of that, it would hold up the ford. Dom's main force would then close in on our tail. That's why the Fist is sending the Foolish Dog clan ahead to the ford. List then explains that Coltane has asked for Duiker to join the Foolish Dog clan in the race to the ford. After some thinking about the 7-league ride, Duiker says that they may just get there to wheel around and meet a charge. List tells the historian that Dom's cavalry will be just as tired as they will be. Duiker second-guessed the statement in his mind and said out loud to List that it should be a memorable ride. List nods, but was distracted by all the butterflies. He tells Duiker that he's never seen so many butterflies before. Duiker said that the butterflies migrate like birds. List has moved past the butterflies and tells the historian that it's been said that the river is low. Duiker said that this was a good thing. List said, yeah, but the ford is also really narrow, and most of the river cuts through the gorge. Duiker replied by asking the corporal if he rode the same way. Tug this way, just to tug the other way. List replied and said that he was just weighing his options. The historian asked List if his dreams revealed anything about the river. List's expression tightened and said that it is a border, and beyond it lies the past. Duiker asked the corporal about the rings of stones beneath them. List looked at the ring of stones, looked up to meet Duiker's eyes, and said, "Hood's breath." Duiker grinned and gathered up his reins. He said that he saw the Foolish Dog clan on its way forward, best not to keep them waiting. Nice little cool introductory section. I really enjoyed, I guess, the tranquility of the surrounding environment. Like, I can just imagine this really densely thick forest, but still stumps, kind of, like traces of it being cut down and stuff like that. Yeah, it was just, and then like all of these like yellow butterflies just, flying and fluttering fucking everywhere, and the butterflies are kind of a reoccurring theme throughout this chapter. So it was just really cool to see them throughout the whole thing,
Yeah, I know you and I had texted a little bit about it before, but yeah, the butterflies just seem to be almost like, I guess, the cherry on top for this chapter, because it was just beautifully written and really well written. And I think it would have been fine without the butterflies included, but it was just that a little bit extra detail that just kind of set it apart. I thought it was just like, Erickson really thought about it, and man, it just gives you a little bit more visual. And like, I think in my mind, I'm thinking like monarchs, and I know they're not like reading this, I think like yellow, like a sun yellow, and not like a orange, like a monarch, but
Right.
just butterflies everywhere. I mean, that would be something to see. That, I mean, I don't know that we would ever see something like that on our planet, that many, or at least in our area. Maybe other parts of the world, sure, but
Maybe that densely packed.
yeah, I think, I mean, it would, like, if I saw that, it would definitely make me stop and just appreciate that moment, I think, and just something simple and beautiful, especially when you're running for your life. I mean, you don't get those chances.
Well, and man, I mean, just the description of the way that this chapter starts off, and of course, your first time going through it, like you expect something to happen because that's what it's been built up to be, is that Corbelow Dam is racing you to this river, right? And now we are pretty much almost here to this river. And just to have, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Cool.
Are you drinking or am I drinking?
No, I'm not drinking. I haven't had anything. Nighttime is really weird for me. I have like all of this energy, even though I've been like dog tired all day. I don't know what it is about the nighttime. It just makes me, this is where I have all my energy.
Gotcha. All right.
But right. What I was saying is that the lay of the land and the way that everything was described just elevated my anxiety to know that there could be some fighting in these woods because of everything that had been led up to Corbelow Dam and, the chain of dogs trying to beat each other to the river. That's what I was going to say.
Gotcha. It really is like a death race to get to the river, though, isn't it?
It really is. Again, I didn't have a ton of things to talk about. I think that this whole rock formation thing is interesting, and I'm curious as to what your thoughts are about that.
I wasn't sure what it was. I mean, I thought about it, and I don't know. It made me kind of think of a little bit like in the Fellowship of the Ring. I guess I don't remember how it was portrayed in the books, but in the first movie, they go to that like rock formation kind of up above the ground a little bit, and Aragorn goes off for a little while, and the ring wraiths show up where Frodo gets stabbed. I kind of got like a similar type vibe to that, but also not the same thing. So I don't know. I'm not sure what it is.
Sure. I'm assuming it's something from, Erickson's experience as an archaeologist. And I guess two things come to mind when I think of the Circle of Stones. We're in Gardens of the Moon, where Quick Ben is basically like, he calls out to Hairlock and meets him in the Warren of Chaos. He like takes 5 stakes and like sets them in front.
Yeah, that was cool.
Pattern. That's kind of almost what I'm envisioning is going on. Is that it may have been some type of like a past place to, call somebody or meet somebody, or, some type of ceremony or sacrifice or social gathering of some kind.
Sure.
Is really all that I can make out of it.
Gotcha.
And, the only other thing that I thought was interesting, and it was kind of a little like there are moments throughout this chapter in each of these sections that are kind of confusing to me as to what they relate to something. But I think that when Duiker replied to List about tugging this way just to tug the other way, I'm interpreting that as Duiker trying to reassure List that the river only has one way it can flow. And regardless of what they do, they really don't have a choice.
Interesting, because when I read that, I thought it was just how List was physically riding his horse. Like, I kind of thought he was, maybe putting weight on his bad leg a little bit, to see how it felt, and then going back the other way if it didn't feel right, or or if it hurt or something like that. So it's interesting. We had two pretty different takes on that.
Yeah, I guess I'm just relating it to like what List is saying. List is like, yeah, but the ford is narrow and most of the river cuts through like a gorge. And I think Duiker is just trying to like reassure him that regardless of the situation, like they have to push forward. because if they don't cross before Dom, like they're fucked, you know?
Yeah, there's no turning around.
Right. Yeah. Outside of that, I didn't have anything for that section. I thought just again, the amount of peace and tranquility that you get in that very opening scene is just really cool. And I don't know if that's just like a juxtaposition compared to like what happens throughout this chapter, but peace is not maintained for very long.
No, it is not.
So, but yeah, I guess it's up to you. Did you have any other thoughts on that section?
No, I did not. I don't think I've got anything to add to what you had there, sir.
Awesome. Well, if you're cool, I'm cool. Let's move on.
All right. Duiker was startled. Among the cattle dogs barking, he heard a yip. In the midst of the cattle dogs was a mess of a hare lapdog. Duiker said he thought it would have found its way through the intestinal tract of one of the larger dogs by now. List wished that had happened as the barking hurt his ears. Plus, look at it, looking like it runs the pack. Duiker said perhaps it does. Just because it is small, do not count out its attitude. Coltane swung his horse around, speaking to Duiker. He says that he called for the captain of the sappers, but he has not shown. He's beginning to think he doesn't exist, and asks if Duiker has actually seen him. He says he has not, but is assured he lives. Coltane asks by who, though Duiker cannot recall and is surprised at himself. It occurred to Coltane that the sappers don't actually have a captain, and they have no interest in acquiring one. Duiker says that would be a hell of a power move. Coltane asks if he thinks they are incapable of pulling it off, to which Duiker says he believes that they could. Coltane asks Duiker if he will ride with the foolish dogs. He says he will, but requests that List stays with the main column. List tries to plead his case, but Duiker shuts him down and tells Coltane that he is not nearly healed. Coltane agreed. Bolt crashed into the area, throwing his lance into the grass and cursing. Coltane said it was no surprise that the little dog hadn't quieted down, with him trying to kill the damn thing daily. He then told Coltane it was time for him to ride as Nether arrived. She looked sick and withdrawn, full of pain, and her hands were black as if she'd stuck them in oil. Duiker felt sadness and had to turn away. So I was pretty excited reading that little dog back, a few chapters ago. I thought that thing just got eaten, but apparently it did not.
The Haganese roach dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like based on other sections in this chapter that he's kind of becoming an annoyance. So
yeah, and you know what? I'm just kind of thinking about this now. There's thoughts coming into my head, but it feels like it's a comparison, right? You look at Coltane's group, they're that little dog. And all the big dogs, that's Corbolo Dom and Camus Rouleau. And, they're hanging in there somehow, even though they're smaller, probably not as strong and everything. But their attitude is kind of carrying them through this.
Right.
So I think it's kind of interesting. Like I said, that just kind of popped into my head now. I didn't think about that as I read it, but just speaking these words that I wrote down, it just kind of popped into my head. I don't know that it's going to play a role or anything, but it hasn't been eaten yet.
That's true. But do you also think that could be, along with your very, I guess, very cool explanation? I didn't see that either. I was more thinking about the nobles, how the way that you're applying that to Coltane being the dog and the cattle dogs being Corporal Dom's army. Do you think that the dog represents the nobles and just their will to fight so hard against Coltane to get what they want?
I don't know. I think that the nobles are just kind of brats.
Well, right.
I mean, which is, it's kind of, I guess, you look at little dogs and they kind of, sometimes they kind of get that reputation, right? They're kind of brats. So I guess I could kind of see that, but
I like yours much better than mine. But just that's kind of like where my symbolism went with the dog.
Sure.
Yeah, again, a really cool area. I feel like it's setting. I feel like these sections as small and quick as they are really setting the scene for a lot of what's to come. Like, we know that the Foolish Dog Clan and Duiker are essentially racing ahead to get to the ford first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The only other thing is Nether, and just how Duiker can't even look at her. Just all of the pain that he sees on her face clearly is something that she'll probably take to her grave, and Duiker knows it. Like, this is she won't ever forget.
I was kind of thinking the same thing. You know, I don't know. Duiker's a pretty hardy dude, and he's got to, look away from this mage. I don't know what is really there that's deeper, but I think it speaks to something. I'm just not entirely sure what it is.
Yeah, I guess outside of that, I don't have anything else to add to it. Again, I think that it's just kind of setting the scene, really. A lot of these sections are in a very cool
I
way,
agree.
though. Like, I think it makes the ending of this chapter, all of this really helps to like set that up and make it pay off.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, here's section number 3. Butterflies rose from the trader track in a swirling cloud, which caused the horses to stop suddenly, which then caused the horses to run into each other. During the bottleneck of horses, the cattle dogs dove into the swarm of butterflies. The insects rose and started to part from the road. Duiker was spitting out ragged wings from his mouth when he saw Bent carrying a ball of fur with 4 legs dangling from its mouth. Soon, order was restored, and the cattle dogs led the way, and in no time, Duiker found that they were moving at a steady speed. Duiker noticed that there weren't any of the usual sounds of shouting, Wiccan riding songs, just the thunder of horses' hooves and an eerie whisper of the butterflies all around them. The journey was surreal. On either side of the road were dead trees, and beyond them were groupings of young cedar trees. This side of the river, there was too few trees to be called a forest. The cattle dogs had set a tremendous pace, far fitter than the horses that followed in their wake. Each hour they would rest or put the horses at a walking pace and drink some water. The trader's track was their best chance to beat Corporal O'Dom to the river. When they had gone about 40 leagues, a sound of susurration reached Duiker. It had come from the west. He pulled up alongside Nether, who explained that a mage rode with Dom, clearing the way. Duiker asks her about the warrens being contested. Nether responds that the warrens have been clear for 3 days now. Duiker asks her how the mage is clearing the butterflies. Nether explains to the historian that they are simply opening a warren and closing them. The butterflies then vanish inside the warrens. Nether was able to observe the timing between each disposal of the butterflies and informs Duiker that because of this, the mage is getting tired. Duiker says that this is good news, and they should reach the river before Dom. Nether nods her head in agreement and says that she believes that they will. A short while later, they came to a cleared verge, and to the east and west, rocks rose up from the earth. The trader track sloped down, and at its base was a broad clearing. Beyond the clearing revealed a flattened yellow carpet of butterflies. Duiker thought to himself that this was the River Bathar, a funeral procession of insects. The crossing itself was marked by poles on each side. On the eastern side, heading downstream, just a bit past the poles, was a large ship at anchor in the current. Nether hissed a breath at seeing the ship, and Duiker had his own feelings about it. The ship had been burned completely, making the whole thing look black. They rowed down to the clearing, and just off to the side was an awning covering a small hearth where 3 men sat. The cattle dogs surrounded the 3 men. As Nether and the historian approached the 3 men, one of them rose and stepped out. Duiker noticed that his face and skin were a polished bronze hue. The yappy dog rushed at the man, and the man crouched down to pick up the dog and lather it with pets. The dog's tail wagged as happy as it could be. The man asked in Malazan who was responsible for this scary herd. Nether said that it was her. Scowling, the man said that he figured as much. Duker noticed something familiar about the man, but asked and said what the man meant by what he had just said. The bronze-hued man replied that he's had his fill with arrogant little girls. He introduced himself as Corporal Gessler, as well as introducing his ship as the Solanda. The historian stated that few would choose that name of a curse. Gessler explained that they didn't name the ship, but it was actually the real Solanda. Nether spoke up and asked how they came to be waiting for them. Gessler answered by saying that they weren't waiting, and they were just outside Ubard, but the city had fallen, so they decided to hole up here, and eventually make their way to Erin. Duker suddenly recognizes them as the Marines he met the day of the uprising. Gessler was scowling, and asked Duker if he was the one with Culp that day. Stormy rose, interrupting the corporal, saying that it was him, and that he thought he'd never see the historian again. Duker agreed and said that they have a tale to tell. Stormy grinned. Nether spoke, her eyes still on the Solanda. She asked Gessler how many were in his company. Gessler said that there were 3. Nether asked about the crew. Gessler said that they were dead. Duker, however, sensed a dryness in the corporal's response. So this was cool.
Dude.
What?
Yeah, I was. I'm sure you probably had just as much surprise as I did as seeing the Solanda again. I didn't think we would see it in this book again.
Well, I remember reading it, and you hadn't gotten to it yet, and I'm like, oh, dude, you're gonna love the way this starts off. So
I know. I feel like this was one of the few times you got to read it before I did. Usually it's the other way around.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it was, I was not expecting the Solanda. I was not expecting Gessler, Stormy, or Truth.
Right.
This whole time I had it in my head that they were dead. But, part of me is just like, shame on you, Justin. You should have known,
Yeah, I'm happy too, because I feel like there must be something, because Stormy got the Talanimus sword, right?
Right. Yep.
Like there's something's like gotta be like that's gotta be important somehow.
Oh,
I just think that's so cool, and so I'm like waiting. I was like, man, that sucks. Like that just dropped like that. But now it's like, oh, it's back. Like, okay, we might find something out about that, and so I'm excited to hopefully find something out about that at some point.
Well, we get a little bit more in one of the sections. Gessler is talking about the Solanda, and we can kind of get there, which I didn't really catch at first until I was summarizing it. And
okay,
it's just really cool to think about, and I think
right.
It also gives a little bit more insight to Solanda. Not a ton, not anything like that wow moment or anything, but it was just a really cool detail.
Sure.
There was another thing in this section that was kind of confusing because Duker has a thought as the butterflies are like all scattering the trader track or whatever. He sees Bent, which is the dog that started following, was it Sormo around? Want to say? And he had like a ball of fur with 4 legs dangling from its mouth. And I feel like Duker like saw him kill something, like maybe a rabbit or a squirrel or something. And he has this like abstract thought about like, I didn't see that. Or he's just like, I can't believe I just saw that. Or, something along those lines. And I'm like, at first I thought it was the Haganese roach dog, the yappy dog.
That's what I thought it was. I thought he was just carrying the little dog around.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like I'm getting a sense that he killed something. Or
I guess I don't remember specifically on that, but yeah, I thought it was little dog.
maybe he, like the little dog has made Bent its chariot.
Could be. You know what I'm waiting for? I'm waiting for that Bart Simpson moment where like somebody's gonna yell, "Get Bent."
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Sorry, sidetrack.
No, you're fine. One of the other things that I really, really enjoyed about this was just the idea, right, of just the way that everything visually was set up. Like you've got this really small area, Gessler and crew and the Solander just kind of like off a bank in this clearing, but like the river is just caked with dead butterflies, and they're just a funeral procession of insects just slowly flowing downriver. I thought that was beautiful and tragic at the same time.
For sure. Yeah, I agree.
What do you think about Gessler and crew being a hue of bronze? What did you
I
think?
don't know what the hell it means.
I don't either. I have absolutely no idea. And I know that we get a little kind of more revealed as we read this chapter, but I thought it was weird. It caught me off guard as well. I'm like, why the fuck are they bronze hue? Did they get like a really cool tan on the Solana or something?
They got baked.
Right.
I'm sure we'll find out what it is here pretty soon. But yeah, I don't know what kind of like transformation they went through or whatever. But I mean,
Right.
They obviously went through something.
Exactly. And that's just where I'm like, what the hell is going on? This
Right.
chapter was full of like really cool, rich details and really confusing things at the same time.
Yeah.
But again, another very longer section than we've come across before, but still pretty short in the grand scheme of things. I don't know if I really have anything else to add. I think, oh, right. Gessler, when he was talking about he's had his fill with arrogant little girls, he was referring to fellows in there.
I suppose. Yeah.
So I guess a nice little homage to fellows in there.
Enough time in her presence, I guess.
Right. But yeah, I'm good to move on if you are.
All right. 800 foolish dog horse warriors set up 3 corrals in the middle of the clearing and began to work on perimeter defenses. Scouts headed out and returned almost immediately with word that Corbolo Dom's advanced outriders had arrived. While some troops kept working on defenses, others were weapon ready and waiting. Duiker got off his horse near the awning along with Nether. Truth, Stormy, and Gessler all joined, and Duiker noticed the bronze hue on their skin. None of the 3 had a beard, and it looked as if the hair on their head had just started growing. Even with all these questions, he looked at the Solanda. He said it had no sails left. Do the 3 of them man the oars and rudder? Gessler told Stormy to ready the weapons. The Wiccans are already worn out, and they may have to get out quickly, so Truth went to the dory, which I imagine is like a little boat, a dinghy. Gessler told Duiker that the Solanda goes on her own, but he doubted he had time to explain, as these ragtag group of Wiccans are face-to-face with the last stand from the looks of it. They might be able to take out 100 or so long as he wasn't worried about the company he'd be in. Duiker snapped a little bit here and said, Corporal, this ragtag mess is part of the 7th. You are Marines. Gessler cut him off and said, Coastal, remember? We ain't officially in the 7th, and I don't care if you're Culp's long-lost brother. If you're going to give me that tone, you best start telling me about the tragic loss of your uniform, and then maybe I'll buy the song and start calling you sir. Or maybe I won't, and you'll get your nose busted in. Duiker only blinked and told him they were Marines, and Fisk Coltane may be interested in their story, as he was as Imperial historian. The coastal detachments were headquartered in Sialk, meaning Captain Lull is your commander. No doubt he will want to hear your report. Oh, and the rest of the 7th? And 2 additional Wiccan clans, along with about 45,000 refugees are on their way here now. Gentlemen, wherever you came from to get here, here you are, meaning you're back in the Imperial Army. Stormy stepped up and said that Culp had a lot to say about him, being Duiker, but he didn't remember if any of it was good. Even so, Stormy said he had dreamed of meeting the bastard who put them all through this. Gessler said that was a nice sentiment. Duiker said he needed to know what happened to Culp. Stormy said they would like to know too. At this time, 2 clan leaders came to talk to Nether. Duiker asked what was happening. Nether said that the cavalry were 300 paces away, making camp with no indications of attacking, but they are taking trees down. Duiker wondered what they were building then. Gessler said they could take the dory up for a closer look. Nether turned and stared hard at Gessler and asked what was wrong with the ship. He said nothing. It's just burnt a little is all. She still floats, though. Nether said nothing, her gaze still strong. Gessler reached under his shirt and pulled out a bone whistle and said the crew was dead, but that didn't slow him down any. Stormy chirped in and said they had their heads cut off, but you can't hold a good sailor down. Gessler said they were mostly Tisty Andy, a handful of humans, and some Tisty Edur. Gessler looked to Duiker and said they got Heberick like they were supposed to. There were 2 others also, but they lost them overboard in the storm. Duiker asked if they were dead. He said they can't be sure as they don't know if they hit the water or not. They were on fire. It might have been water they were sailing on, and it might not have been too. Duiker wanted to strangle him. Nether told Duiker to go with the Marines in the dory, but to stay away from shore. Their mage is exhausted, but she needs to know what is happening. Gessler helped Duiker up and said on the way Stormy would spin the yarn of their travels. After that, he must tell them how Coltane had managed to stay alive this long. That would be a story worth hearing. Well, what did you think?
I think it's interesting that Gessler is so confrontational with Duiker, but when it came to Culp, he seemed very amicable. Is that something that you noticed too?
I didn't, but I think it kind of relates to, I think it was my only point on this chapter. Well, I had 2. I'll go with my second one here first, but where Stormy said that Culp had a lot to say about Duiker, but he didn't remember if any of it was good things to say. It made me wonder about just the matter of perspective, and maybe Duiker's a good guy, but maybe not too, since we get his perspective, so we get how he wants things to be shown. So he's just spinning things his way, and that's kind of where I wonder with we get these 2 historians. Is maybe one a little bit more I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but help me out here, Justin.
Like a martyr?
No. Sorry, not at all what I was thinking.
Okay.
In the middle, they're not really. I feel like Heberick is maybe a little bit more impartial. Impartial is the word I was looking for.
Gotcha.
Struggle.
Okay. Sorry.
Or maybe no, that's fine. Maybe Duiker isn't quite as impartial or anything. I don't know. But yeah, having 2 historians is interesting. But a little bit of me wonders about Duiker. Is he the good guy that we feel like he's supposed to be? I don't know. I kind of feel like maybe not.
I feel like I brought these questions up at the very beginning of this book.
Did you? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I guess I don't remember that.
No, where I was just I was talking about Heborick or whatever. Well, he must have gotten his hands cut off because he was telling the truth and nobody wanted to hear about it, which to me, if you're going to be punished because you're saying the truth, but nobody wants to hear the truth. They just want to hear a sugar-coated version. I feel like Duiker is the type that will just do what he's told to do and not really question it. You know what I mean? Whereas Heborick, I kind of see well, that's not what happened, so why shouldn't we document it that way? I guess is kind of where I was going with it all those episodes ago, but I feel like it really hasn't been a major theme as far as the tale of 2 historians for a while now.
Yeah, because Duiker was Heberick's lawyer, for lack of a better term, right? Or was it the other way around?
It was. You're right. Yeah.
That's kind of where I think that maybe Heberick is the one that's impartial, and Duiker's just the one. He's like, hey, I'm going to try to help you out here. We'll spin this away where you don't look guilty, or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I
guess.
guess.
Maybe it's not like that at all. I don't know. It's just kind of how otherwise, why do you have 2 historians otherwise? I feel like one of them's got to be a little bit shady.
Or they are 2 halves of a whole.
How so?
We'll talk about it later.
Okay, fair. My other thing here, does Culp have a long lost brother? I feel like somebody said that same phrase before, but I guess I don't remember for sure or not. I don't know if you do.
I think Gessler was just trying to say that like he didn't care who Duiker was.
I just wasn't sure if I remembered something there.
No, I mean possible, maybe. I don't know. That's maybe. I just is it make you a little bit sad to know that like they don't know that Culp is dead, but we do, and they're still talking about him as if he's alive. I don't know. I guess that hurt a little bit because like I liked Culp. I did.
I did too, but we've had all these other switcheroos on us here, so maybe somehow he's not dead. I think he's probably gone, but
Yeah, I'm pretty
maybe
sure
he's not.
Jan confirmed that for us that he was gone.
I think it's likely he's probably gone.
Maybe he comes back as a spirit.
Anything's possible.
Right. But yeah, again, just a very cool, smaller section. Again, kind of setting the scene. It seems like at this point, Gessler is going to, or has offered the Solanda to carry as many people as it can carry, right?
I don't think we got to that point yet.
Oh, whoops. Well, whatever. I think that's coming up next.
Pretty quick. Yeah, I'm ready to move on if you're ready to keep going.
Yeah, I'm definitely ready.
Sounds good.
Stormy explains that it's the carpet of dead butterflies in the water. Otherwise, they would be rowing much faster. They had been sitting in the small rowboat for over an hour. Stormy, in truth, had only managed to row them 150 paces upriver through the thick sludge of the drowned butterflies. The north side rose quickly into a steep cliff decorated with vegetation. They were approaching a sharp bend in the gorge that was caused by a collapse of some kind. Stormy had told his tale, showing his poor narrative skills and his painful lack of imagination. To Duiker, he was left contemplating the significance of what these Marines had gone through. It was obvious to the historian that their escape from the Warren of Fire, that these men had been changed. Not just the weird bronze hue to their skin, but the fact that Stormy and Truth at the oars ran tirelessly with strength that matched double their number. Duiker looked forward to, but dreaded boarding the Solanda at the same time. Even without Nether's heightened abilities to sense sorcery, the aura that ship radiated was horrific to Duiker's senses. Gessler could be heard saying to look at something. They had reached the crook of the river. The collapse of the cliffside had narrowed the river, and a torrent could be seen through the gap. A tightened rope could be seen spanning the banks. A dozen Ubari archers could be seen pulling themselves along the rope. Gessler said that they were easy pickings, and asked if Truth could hold the boat steady so Stormy could pick them off. Duiker tells them to hold up, as he observes that at least 100 soldiers had already made it their way across. Gessler makes a statement that if they were chopping down trees to make a bridge, then they were making something else. If he observed figures on the north cliff looking down at them, Gessler makes it known that they are being watched. Duiker observed the figure and guessed that it was the mage. Duiker suggests that they make their way back. I think that was the shortest section I've had in here. You got all the cool little ones, and me not so much.
Sorry, man.
No, that's fine. I was really proud of myself because I managed to summarize my last section in like little over 2 pages, where usually I would probably write about 3.5, 4.
Well, I mean, I get kind of all depends.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I can comment on this very short little section is that I have no idea what could have happened. My immediately thoughts go to the Talani Mass, but I'm also biased about this, though, because the Talan were the visitors on the ship, and it was the dragon that burned them, not a Warren, right?
Was it? Did the dragon spout some fire out? I guess I don't remember.
That's what I always thought.
Could have been. I guess, yeah. I guess I kind of thought it was probably the dragon as well and not so much the Warren.
I don't know then. I don't know. But I mean, so Gessler, Stormy, and Truth, they have a bronze hue to their skin. They don't get tired, and they have the strength of double the men.
I don't feel like, I mean, I don't know. I guess my thoughts probably don't go to the Talan. I would think it's probably one of the other two, Tissi Andy or the Tissi Edur. I guess I'm not sure which. Just because, like, the Talan, I mean, they're like the undead, right? They're like corpses walking around, and that's not what these guys are.
I feel like Talan used to be humans. Aren't they just undead humans?
Weren't they, like, bigger than people, though?
I don't know. See, this is the part where, like, you know, we could both be right. You could be right. I could be right. And I don't even really care. It's just, like, what the fuck is going on with these guys? You know? This is the first thing that they're throwing in here. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Are you starting something else now? You know? Like, come on.
Yeah, it's probably neither somehow.
I'm sure it's probably something super weird and, like, something that we didn't expect. But do you remember reading the part where their hair hadn't even started to grow and, like, their beards were barely visible?
Yeah.
But I mean, they've been out here for how long?
Well, I mean, weeks probably at least.
So don't you think their hair and their beard would have grown back a little quicker?
I don't know, man. It's all weird. Weird magic shit, isn't it?
Gotcha. No worries. No worries. But yeah, anyway, I mean, the only other thing to take away is that we see Corporal Dom's army having basically archers rope or zip lined from the north side to the south side. So we've got Ubari archers on the south side, and Duiker and Gessler are the only ones who really know about it.
I was kind of thinking, like, why don't you start picking these guys off? But then it's kind of like, well, there's a bunch of them that have already gotten across, so maybe it's best not to. But, you know, because they'd start raining areas. Yeah, but a part of me was like, oh, just go for it. But probably the smarter move to not do that.
Right. Yeah. Outside of that, I don't have anything else to add. You know, it's just more pieces are getting set up.
Definitely. Yeah, I don't think I've really got anything to add there either.
All right, then.
All right. The remaining trees of the forest were quickly disappearing as Corbolo Dom's troops were taking places on either side of the ford. A no man's land with a width of about 70 paces was left, and the trader's track had been left open. Duiker found Nether sitting under the awning with eyes closed. He waited, thinking she was in communication with Sormo. A few minutes passed, and she asked what the news was. He told her that lines were strung from one side of the gorge to the other, and they were sending archers across. He asked what was going on, why they had not been attacked. Corbolo could crush them right now, but Coltane was about 2 hours away. It seemed Corbolo would wait. Duiker said he should have heeded the lesson of Camus Rouleau's arrogance. A new fist, a renegade fist. Is Duiker really surprised that Corbolo is making this personal? Duiker thought not, but said that it justifies the Empress's dismissal of him. Nether explained that Fist Coltane was chosen over Corbolo, and the Empress made it clear to Corbolo that he would not advance any further up the Imperial chain of command. He feels he has something to prove. With Rouleau, they face battles of brute strength based on numbers. Now they will face a battle of wits. Duiker said if Coltane comes, he is stepping into the jaws of a dragon, and it's not even disguised. Still, he comes, said Nether. Duiker thought that maybe arrogance invaded both commands. Nether asked where the corporal was. Duiker said he was somewhere near, not far. She said the Salanda will take as many wounded soldiers as it can hold, those who can heal. To Aaron, and Coltane wants to know if he would join the ship. Duiker said he would stay. Nether told him that Coltane knew that would be his answer, but did not understand how he could know Duiker's answer. Duiker said he didn't know why she was asking him. The man was a Wiccan, after all. Nether told him that the man was still a mystery to them. The clans do as he commands and say nothing. It was not a shared certainty or mutual understanding that kept them quiet. It was awe that keeps them silent. Duiker had no reply. His eye's attention was taken to the sky, blurs of pale yellow fluttering across. He thought that they migrated, creatures of instinct, a mindless plunge into fatal currents, a beautiful, horrifying dance to Hood, with every step mapped out. I didn't really have anything here for this. I don't know what you made of it.
I mean, I guess, what are your thoughts about Corporal Dom and his character here?
Just that clearly it is personal. I mean, it sounds like he's bitter that he got passed over. But then I think, like, you're looking at this now, do you think Corabolo would really want to, like, trade places with Coltane? Because I don't think anybody... Well, I don't know. Maybe these guys are that crazy to pull this. Like, if Coltane pulls this off, he's going to be like a fucking legend, right? And
Right.
maybe Corabolo kind of wants that. But I don't know, dude.
Why
Because,
would
like,
Corabolo want him to be a legend?
he wouldn't want Coltane to be a legend. But, like, if Corabolo switched places with Coltane and had this opportunity and he pulled it off, he'd be the legend, not Coltane, right?
Right. Which means that he's just working that much harder to make sure that Coltane is not successful.
Yeah, it's like, it's kind of lose-lose though, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is the beginning of Corporal Dom's trap, you know? Like, this is the way that he's going to try to outsmart Coltane. And Coltane knows it.
Coltane's a pretty smart cookie.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he is. But I don't know. I almost kind of feel like after reading the rest of the events that it's one of those things where Corporal Dom was too confident. You know what I mean? Like when you go up against like a sure win team, like you're going to blow them out of the water, but they end up giving you the hardest challenge ever. You know what I mean? And
it's a trap game.
Right. But I also kind of wonder, going back to what Jan was saying about how a lot of these battles were decided by a dice. And I just can't help but wonder, like, yeah, I'm sure that's happened, but I mean, some of it's got to be fabricated.
That's something I would definitely want to ask Mr. Erickson when we get to talk to him is in this book, are there things that were decided on the roll of a die? If so, what were they? And
if they were decided against your favor, would you still honor the die or would you take it up in your own hands? You know what I mean?
I feel like they'd probably go with what the die said. I mean, I get the sense that's probably how they would have played.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Then maybe we don't ask him that. Maybe he would be upset by that. I don't know.
Questioning his character.
That's not what I'm trying to do. I swear. In the interest of a story, I guess, is what I'm against your creative vision.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like this section really kind of made Corporal Dom seem a little bit of a dick. But at the same time, Duiker makes a comparison between Coltane and Dom about being a little too arrogant, because Coltane's just like, whatever, cool, we'll walk in, no worries.
Yeah, he's not biting.
Mm-mm.
Well,
but yeah. Anyway, I'm ready to move on if you are.
Sounds good. I feel like we're kind of cruising through this pretty good. We got a good pace going here, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've only been talking for about an hour now, and we're almost halfway there. But I think we're going to start slowing down here soon. So, this next section has probably one of the funniest moments in this book, in my opinion. Just in my opinion, and we'll get there. We will get there.
Sounds good.
Because it dawned on me what it was as I was summarizing it. So, but we'll get there. The Fist arrived a couple hours later in darkness. The wagons of wounded that were selected for the Solanda rode in the wake of the Crow warriors. Coltane looked exhausted, but strode down to where Duiker, Nether, and Gessler were sitting by the awning. Behind Coltane came Bolt, Lull, Solmar, and then finally Nil and Sormel. Lull strode up to Gessler Banters exchanged between them about which two was the most ugly looking, and being in some deep shit, they get onto the subject of how many Marines Gessler was with them. Gessler explains that he has 2 left in his squad, but really, officially, it's only 1, because Truth was still a recruit. Lull then promotes Truth to a Marine. As Lull turned to Gessler, Gessler told the captain that if he promotes him and Stormy, he's going to punch Lull right in the face. Bolt heard this and pushed past Lull to become face-to-face with Gessler. While standing nose-to-nose with Gessler, Bolt asked if Gessler would punch him as well. Gessler said that he would punch Bolt, and he would give the fist crack thong a yank too. There was dead silence. Coltane burst out laughing, so much that the cattle dogs had circled around him. Coltane turned to the corporal and asked Gessler what Cartharon Crust would have said to that. Gessler started to say that he'd punch him in his, and then got no further when Coltane's fist connected with Gessler's nose. The Marine's head snapped back and his feet left the ground. Coltane immediately wheeled around, clutching his hand. Sarmal looked at the fist's hand and explained that the fist's wrist had shattered. Everyone turned to look at Gessler, who was sitting up and had blood gushing from his nose. Both Nil and Nether could be heard hissing. Duiker grasped Nether's shoulders and spun her around. He asked what was the matter. Nil was the one who answered, though, as he whispered, "That blood, that man has almost ascended." Gessler did not hear what Nil had said. His gaze still on Coltane, he said that he guessed he'd take that promotion now. Both warlocks were staring at Coltane in awe. It dawns on Duiker that Coltane was able to make Gessler bleed, and Gessler was on the edge of ascendancy. Duiker recalls the tale they spun of the Burning Warren when they were all in the dory. All 3 of them? And Coltane? There was so much confusion going on that no one noticed the horse hooves approaching, until List tells Bolt that they had visitors. A half dozen of the Crow horse warriors approached, and they surrounded an Ubari officer. The Ubari officer states that he brings greetings from Corbel O'Dam. Coltane, with his broken hand behind his back, asked the Ubari officer what he wanted. Nethpara and Pulyak Alar rushed into the clearing. The Ubari officer begins to explain that Dom only wants peace, and to prove it, he has spared the Wiccan riders that arrived earlier in the day. 6 of the 7 cities have been liberated from Malazan control. Aaron's independence can be negotiated to the gain of Empress Lysine's treasury. Coltane said nothing. The emissary hesitated but continued on to explain to further their proof of peace, the crossing of the refugees to the south bank will not be contested. Pulyak Alar jumps in to explain to the Fist that the Council of Nobles trusts in Dom's word and to give them leave tomorrow. Duiker frowned at this, thinking that there was communication. The Fist ignored Pulyak and told the emissary to let Dom know that the offer was rejected and that Coltane was done speaking. The emissary was forcefully dismissed. The nobles had begun to voice their disdain for the decision, and eventually they were forcefully removed as well. Bolt looked around and found Gessler. He asked the Marine if his ship was ready. Gessler said that it was. Duiker heard Stormy tell him that this didn't smell right. Duiker nodded.
Yeah, dude, I was not buying that shit. Something like this is no way. You don't run these people down and then you're like, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. We'll let you cross. We won't kill you. I don't know. I wasn't believing it.
I mean, I feel like Dom's ploy here is to let the refugees go. I think that what he's trying to make everybody think is that this battle is between Coltane and I. Everyone else that is just, along for the ride can leave while I stay behind and kick these guys' asses. I think is kind of where that's the sense that I got. But of course, we all know the outcome, but I think that's where my original headcanon was around when I was going through it the first time.
I don't know. I did not, because all we've seen this whole time is they want to kill everybody, refugees, soldiers, whoever. Like they want to just fucking kill them. So I was like, I do not like this. I do not believe it. It's a trap.
It's a trap. It's a trap. So one of the things that I noticed, and I picked out quite a bit in this section, so this is kind of where things may start to slow down a little bit, and we actually have some things to talk about. Truth, as he's giving his salute, it's a salute of some type that makes Bolt and Lull like scoff a little bit, and something to do with like the thumb pinning the pinky finger down. And I wonder if this was like a gesture from like the old Empire or something. So like, I don't know if you could see me, but just like this type of gesture. I don't know.
1 second.
That means.
Do it again. I guess I don't really remember that part. It didn't stick out in my head or anything.
I just thought it was weird. I mean, it's clearly a gesture that like they're scoffing at. So I don't know if they just don't like believe in it, like the validity or like what it stood for, but just thought it was really weird that they scoffed at it, but there was nothing really mentioned after it. So just something I was picking up.
Sure.
Here's what
I didn't have anything to add to it. That's all.
Oh, gotcha. So here's like my award for top funniest or best funniest moment in this book. Probably even just the 2 books so far is Gessler's just like, yeah, I'd punch you, Bolt, but I would also give the fist crack thong a yank too. And he's basically saying that he would give the fist a wedgie.
I did not pick that up, but I didn't really know what that meant. But I guess I did not think that was the funniest part of the book.
I just thought it was funny that he's like, Gessler's like, yeah, I'm gonna punch you in the face, and I'm going to give the fist a fucking wedgie. And like I just think of that commercial where that dude's just slapping people at that like barbecue. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Like that's what I'm imagining Gessler is doing. He's just like punching
kids, and then the cops show up and he just slaps them. Yeah.
Yeah.
The neighbors. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
so,
that was funny.
That's just what got in my head. It was Gessler just slapping and giving people wedgies. So I guess that to me is what I would imagine. I just thought it was funny. Like, and then Coltrane, of course, is like laughing so hard, like, yeah, motherfucker, you gonna give me a fucking wedgie? Like, let's see it. Let's throw down,
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was funny. Just I had to think about it. I'm like, crack thong. What the fuck is a crack thong? And I'm like, okay, well, I know what a thong is. They go in cracks, and giving it a yank. And I'm like, okay, he means a wedgie. He totally means a wedgie. He wants to give the fist a wedgie. Can you see Colton getting a wedgie?
No, but I did not pick that up. No.
Yeah, so I thought it was funny. And it makes it more funnier when you put it together, Nil and Nether hissing at the blood that's coming out of Gessler's nose. And based on the face that they both are based on what the fuck? What was I trying to say? Fact. Okay. Based on the fact that they both hissed, tells me that the blood they are seeing from Gessler's nose is blood from something that they would not call like a friend. You know what I mean? Like the fact that they're hissing is weird to me, right?
That's yeah, that makes sense. It's a good catch. Again, not something I thought of.
So I would assume that clearly Stormy, Truth, and Gessler have ascended or are near ascendant, right? But that's
something's up.
Right. I guess I would imagine that this is the reason that gives us the reason for like the bronze hue and the super strength and like the not being tired easily. But like what exactly happened and how is it possible to tell if someone almost ascended? Like, is he currently transitioning to ascend, or has his chance come and gone? You know what I mean? Like, when you're near an ascending, like, do you get one shot and you were close to ascending? Or are you like currently transitioning? You know what
I
I
don't know.
mean? I guess again, that's where my head's going. But it's just I feel like it's kind of a new concept. Near ascension. It's not really something that like we've had much experience with, right?
No.
I think it's interesting that Duiker has this thought about, well, of course, the three of them, but also Coltane, because it sounds like if you were to punch somebody near ascendant, they wouldn't bleed, which also like indicates that Coltane is potentially like a near ascendant as well. Which didn't you predict something like that many episodes ago? Is that you thought that Coltane was like an ascendant or something? I feel like you did.
I don't know.
I'm not sure. Maybe. I'm not going to take credit for it because I don't remember.
That's fair. I mean, but by all means, I have no way of knowing what exactly all this means. At this moment in time, I'm just going to take it for what it is, enjoy it for what it is. But I can't fathom what it would possibly mean. You know, I know that they're near ascendant. They have some like weird, strange abilities. But what it means in the grand scheme of things, or what story is unraveling, I don't know. I got no guesses.
I'm not sure either.
One of the last things here is that it kind of sounds like after the nobles come in here and start pleading with Coltane, that Duiker thinks that there must have been communication with them as well, which we kind of get a little confirmation on in a later section.
Well, yeah, we do.
Because, I mean, Duiker and Stormy definitely seem to be not smelling something fishy here, right?
Something's going on.
Yeah. But yeah, that was all I had. I thought that was a really cool section. I laughed quite a bit at the whole Coltane getting a wedgie. Like that would be something that I would draw. I could totally draw that. Coltane getting a wedgie.
I think
Maybe
you have the
that's
section
what's
where I
happening.
thought the funniest thing was.
Huh?
I said I think you have the section where my thought of the funniest thing was.
Oh. Yeah, you'll have to bring that up. Can't think of it off the top of my head.
Sure.
But
I'll forewarn you. It's probably a little immature, but
oh yeah, I think I know what part you're talking about. Yeah, I think you already mentioned it. You already mentioned it in this podcast. I just don't think
I did.
recording it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's definitely up there. But I like the wedgie. And that's okay. So that's what's happening with the subterranean press cover. It's Coltane getting a wedgie.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, I'll let you take this next section.
All right. Leoman led them through the darkness across the plain to another resupply. It was a small amount of food. Felison had sat down and wrapped her arms around herself to try and warm up. Heberick sat down with her and said there was no sign of the Toblakai, and if they had any of Open's luck, he was in a soul-taken stomach. Leoman said he fights like no other. That's why Shaik chose him. Heberick said that was an obvious mistake, as the woman was dead. Leoman said the third guardian would have prevented that from happening, but she relinquished his bond. He tried to change her mind, but failed. It was all foreseen, and they were all trapped in their roles. Heberick said that was all very convenient, and asked if the prophecy was as clean on the rebellion's end. Do they now face a triumphant age of apocalypse unending? Never mind, that was a contradiction. Leoman spoke, saying Raraku and Dryjana are one. The Malazan Empire is but a brief flare already fading. We are born from darkness, and darkness is where we return. These are the truths you fear, and in your fear you discount. Felson said she was no one's marionette. Leoman only laughed. She retorted that if this is what it was to become Shaik, then he had best go back to her withered corpse and wait for someone else to show up. Leoman told her that becoming Shaik will not shatter her delusions of independence, unless she wills it so. They heard footsteps approaching. Leoman said to come and eat. Felson smelled raw meat and something wet hit the ground next to her. Toblekai said it was a bear with white fur, and for a moment, he dreamt he had returned home to Lateron. They called the beasts Nathar. He brought its skin and its head. This one was twice as big as any he had seen before. Heberick said he could not wait for daylight. Toblekai said it would be the last sunrise before the oasis. She must undertake the ritual. Heberick said Felson's name. She spoke. 4 voices. No bone, no flesh. Just these feeble noises that claim themselves. 4 points of view. The Toblekai is pure faith, yet he shall one day lose it all. Leoman said it had begun. Felson continued. And Heberick, the rendered priest without faith, who shall one day discover it anew. Leoman, the master deceiver, who sees the world with eyes more cynical than Heberick in his fitting blindness, yet is ever searching the darkness for hope. And finally, Felison. Now, who is this woman in a child's raiment? Pleasure of the flesh, devoid of pleasure. Selves surrendered, one after another. Kindness yearned for behind every cruel word she utters. She believes in nothing. A crucible fired clean, empty. Heberick possesses hands unseen, and what they now grasp is power and truth that he cannot yet sense. Felison's hands, they have grasped and touched. They have been slick and soiled, and yet have held nothing. Life slips through them like a ghost. All was incomplete, Leoman, until Heberick and I came to you. You and your tragic child companion. The book, Leoman. Felison told him to open it. Leoman said she must be the one to open it. And it is also not dawn. She told him again, open it. He tried to speak. She stopped him. Where's your faith, Leoman? You do not understand, do you? This test is not mine alone. The test is for each of us. Here. Now. Open the book, Leoman. She asked what he saw. Leoman said there was nothing to see. It was dark. She told him to look again. She heard him and the others gasp. A glow of spun gold had begun to leak from the book of Drijana. There was a whisper that turned to a roar. The whirlwind awakens, but not here, not in the heart of Raraku. The book, Leoman, what do you see? He flipped through the pages, saying, this was not possible. All the pages were blank. She said, he sees what he sees. Now give the book to Toblekai. He did not hesitate in taking the book. Warm light bathed his face, and she saw tears run down his face. She whispered, such beauty, and beauty makes you weep. Do you know why you feel so much sorrow? No, not yet. One day. Close the book, Toblekai. She turned to Heberick. He said no. Leoman slid a dagger out, but Felison stayed his hand. No, Heberick repeated. My touch. Aye, your touch, Felison replied. You were tested before you failed. Oh, how you failed. You fear you will fail again. Heberick spoke. I do not, Felison. His voice was stern and certain. The least of all, I shall not be a part of this ritual, nor shall I risk putting my hands on that cursed book. Toblekai asked what difference it made if he opened it. He was blind anyways. Toblekai asked permission to kill him, to use his blood to seal the ritual. Do it, Felson said. Toblekai did not hesitate and moved in a blur, his wooden sword going for Heberick's head. If he connected, it would have sent brain matter everywhere. Heberick's hand shot up, one the color of dried blood, the other bestian and fur-backed. They closed on Tobelkai's wrists and stopped the swing dead. The sword flew in the distance in the dark, beyond the light provided by the book. Toblekai grunted in pain. His hands released Tobelkai's wrists and moved to his neck and belt, and he threw him. There was a thud as he hit the ground. Staggering back with a look of rage, his hands disappeared. Felson said, We could see, then, your hands. You were never forsaken, Heberick. No matter what the priests may have believed, when they did what they did. You were simply being prepared. Heberick fell to his knees. Felson continued speaking. And so a man's faith is born anew. Know this. Fenner would never risk investing you and you alone. Heberick light touch. Think on that and be at ease. They could hear Toblakai groaning in the distance. Felson rose to her feet and said, I will have the book now, Leomin. Come the dawn. Felson, surrendering herself yet again. Remade, reborn. Is this the last time? Oh no, it most certainly is not.
What a section.
It was pretty intense.
Yeah.
A couple things, like Tobakai's got this wooden sword. I don't get it, but there must be some significance or importance behind it. If there's been hints about it, I haven't picked them up, or maybe we just haven't been told yet, but I'm not sure.
I almost feel like it's like a kendo stick.
A what?
A kendo stick. Those,
I don't know what the fuck that is.
I think it's just like a wooden practice sword that like most martial arts use, is what I keep imagining it as.
Is it just that he's so deadly he doesn't need a real sword?
I think so. I mean, from what I understand, he's a pretty brute of a dude. Like I'm sure that, any blunt object with the strength that the Toblakai could put behind it is going to smear brains all over the floor.
That's true.
So,
but I don't feel like it's something that's simple though.
You think so? You think it has something to do with like his past or something along those lines?
I don't know. There must be like some significance, like it's a weapon with some significance, I guess. Like I don't know. There's something there, and who knows if we'll ever fucking see that, but it's just odd.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Leomin and Toblakai are, they're still very odd characters for us at this point. I mean, we've read about them and they did a terrible job guarding Shaik, and it's been raised the question that maybe that was what they were supposed to do. Like maybe they weren't supposed to protect her that well because she foresaw her death,
Right. Yeah, it's all very like I feel convoluted.
Mm-hmm.
Like yeah, I don't know. It's very bizarre and just like there's definitely seems to be a plan to things, even if not everybody sees it. But it's like I definitely think things are going the way they're supposed to, even if it doesn't look good at the time being.
Right.
Like, well, Shaik died. Well, yeah, like I think I told you like right away, like I think that's just the plan. Is she's supposed to die, but she's gonna be reborn, and we're getting close to that point. So, also getting close to that point of you taking a couple pies to the face.
Maybe. I don't believe it's Felazin. I mean, this section definitely is making me doubt the book thing. But
what do you mean?
Well, just like the book being able to like emulate a light, and I don't really know what that's supposed to mean because the book really isn't doing anything. It's just Felazin kind of like being meditative about what she's saying, and the things that she's saying don't make any sense,
I feel like you're either you haven't mentioned it yet, and I know you would pick up on this, or you're just ignoring it. I don't know which. But this book is making Toblakai weep. So, which now that I'm thinking about it, could be one of two things. Like he saw something, or maybe from your perspective, he didn't. He didn't see anything. And to your point, well, maybe it's a fake. I don't know. I guess we're gonna have to Rafo.
Leomin doesn't see anything, I mean,
he doesn't, but he might not. Maybe he's not supposed to.
Right. I mean, and this is the hard part. Is just like, Erickson has given us a switcheroo already, and I guess it just you're as a reader during this part, like I feel like it's intended for you to feel off balance about this. But I just, I don't know. I feel like there's so much overwhelming evidence that the book is cooked, you know? And I can't sway that. No matter how much like evidence to dissuade that theory is thrown in my face, I can't shake that feeling that like it's not. I mean, obviously Shaik is reborn because she has to be, but I don't think that the book is necessarily involved. I think that the book is involved, but I don't think that they have the real book. And I think it's going to be like, oh shit, we have the wrong book moment. And then that is like their new venture is to go find the book. I don't even know if Shaik will. Yeah.
No, go ahead, finish. Sorry, I was starting to interrupt you. I'm a jerk. Go.
No,
Sorry.
it's fine. That clearly can't work because from everything that we've been told is that it definitely happens within this book. So we don't have very much ground left to cover. But I mean, I don't know. I get this weird feeling that like the book is on the ship with Kalam and the captain and Sial Gilan, and somehow or one way or another, Kalam rendezvous with like Fiddler and everybody else that's there, and Apsalar opens the book and it's legit, you know. Felazin just I don't think that she's Shaik material. Like she would only use becoming Shaik for personal gain. Where Apsalar, I don't see her doing that. She has no reason to like have anything against the Malazan Empire. But maybe that's the point. I don't know.
I don't know. Just like what hangs me up here, like we see in the section, like I feel like, you know, these words that Felazin is speaking are being spoken through her, and they're not necessarily her words. I feel like Toblakai is probably like too like hard of a person to just start weeping over nothing. So I think he probably saw something on those pages. I don't know what it was. Maybe Leoman wasn't worthy to see what was on there, but Toblakai is for some reason. And he saw something and it's
a bunch of dead children hanging out by him as Hebrick.
Maybe that's exactly why, you know, he did these horrible things. But I don't feel like, okay, so if this, like, to your point, like, oh, well, they enchanted this book like a rock. Why is it just randomly going to start glowing when it's opened? Like, to me, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't have a rebuttal. I don't. You're not wrong. I
just like, I don't like Tobakai's like this badass, like he's gonna like, he doesn't have, like, we get the sense that maybe he has like kind of some remorse a little bit about killing like his clan and stuff, but like I don't think he regrets it. So I don't like, for him to just like, again, it doesn't make sense to me that he's just gonna like start crying over some blank pages in a book. I think he had to have seen something.
Maybe.
I don't know what it is. I don't know.
But I mean,
and
like, how is the Toblakai supposed to know what to expect when opening the book? Because none of them were ever expecting to open it.
But why would that make him cry then?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he saw that the book was fake and started crying, and now he's mad and taking it out on Hebrick. I don't know. I mean, I see your point. It totally could go both ways. I don't
for
know.
Sure. Like,
yeah,
I get yours too. I guess I've got some faith, I guess, in a different way than you do. It's gonna feel like, even like whichever way this goes, it's gonna feel really good to like get that, like, I guess, closure, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah. Probably.
At this point, I don't even really care which way it goes, because I think we both have good points for our point of view. It's just gonna be like, okay, like let's fucking get to it here.
Right. And I mean, why is it that we picked the thing that is going to be of course, the last thing revealed? You know,
How could it be any other way?
like why couldn't we take a bet about who got to the Vathar first? You know, I mean, that was quickly answered. Or whether
Yeah,
no,
but that's not really like a heavy hitting question though.
it's not. It's not. But I'm just saying, like, yeah, I'm definitely feeling like I'm gonna take two here, and I don't want to.
I I don't know. I just feel like we're both kind of drawn to this like this question of it's almost I guess a question of faith, and we both just have different outlooks on it, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah,
And
but
so I'm
like,
excited to see which way it goes.
but absolutely. But I guess here's my maybe devil's advocate question for you is if the book ends up being real, how do you explain Mebra?
What needs to be explained?
Because he's a spy in disguise as an apocalypse member.
I guess I don't know that it matters. Why does it matter?
Because what's his motivation? Why would a traitor of the apocalypse give the apocalypse what it needed? Like, that's the part that wouldn't make sense then.
The greater good? I don't know.
So,
Greater good in quotation marks. Dr. Evil, he wants $1 million and sharks with lasers on its head. I don't know.
I mean, $1 million can afford you that.
This is true.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's this like counterweight of like, you know, if this is real, well, then this doesn't make sense. But if it's not real, then this doesn't make sense. You know, it's weird. So all of that has to be tied up somehow, you know, and I almost kind of wonder if like we're not going to get an answer about the book in this book.
Then maybe we'll have to defer to Jan. I don't know, but I honestly, I'm really glad that we have such opposed views on this because it just makes it that much more interesting and fun.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. All in the name of entertainment. But
Yeah, oh, for sure. Because it's not like I'm like, oh, god damn it, Justin, you're such a fucking idiot. Why don't you get this? Like, that's not what it is. Like, it's fun, like being able to debate you a little bit. Like, and I'm not like some like it's at the beginning of this. Like, I'm not some fucking genius or anything. Like, I'm just a guy reading a book.
right. It's just funny how like, you know, I can understand why a lot of the, you know, the Malazan community, not that like they're argumentative, that's not what I'm trying to say, but just that there's all of these different perspectives and, you know, they're reading the same words. We're all reading the same thing, but we all just have like vastly different experiences. And I think that's absolutely cool. But I also like have been thinking a lot about what Jan said in our wrap up about rereading it. Like I totally can see myself reading it 3 times like him as well. When I'll find the time to do that, I don't know. But like
Yeah.
there's just so many juicy things and the level of foreshadowing that you're going to pick up on is just I would imagine the way that he explained it just beautiful. But yeah.
Oh, I'm sure it's a total different experience the second time through, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Maybe that's what we could do after we're all done. Is just reread the first book and then have an episode about like what we picked up on where we didn't before. You know, and just do that like an episode per book where we talk about all the things that we're just crazy to read about, you know.
I will have forgotten more of this book than I ever knew by that point.
You would be surprised how like when you start reading how things like would likely come back, you know, that you had forgotten about, but you were like, oh yeah, now I remember all this like chain of events, you know.
Yeah.
So,
We got a few years before we're in any sort of position for a reread.
yeah, we're gonna be in our mid 40s.
That's okay.
Sorry, dude. Sorry, man. Anyway,
We'll get one chapter at a time. We'll get there.
right. I don't know. I guess I don't really have anything else for this section. There's so many like juicy things in here. Well, actually, no, I do have things. But so the whole different hands thing with Haboric, and I know that like some of it just doesn't make any sense to me because I feel like when they were on the beach, Haborik was like the jade side of his hand was fighting with the Otatero, and then the other side was some ancient magic that called I don't know. And like where Fenner fits in all of this, because at this point in the story, like we haven't heard about him since,
Whatever chapter that was.
whatever that chapter that was. And I mean, clearly Fenner is hiding, but I get the feeling, and I think that you would agree, that Fenner is hiding in Hebrik, right?
It seems that way, I think.
But it's either like the whole bestial hand, like the fur that like, because I'm assuming it's ghost. It's a ghost hand that's got like fur on it, right? So my guess is that it's either like a half shapeshifter thing, or it's half Fenner, like half Fenner and then half Jade, whatever. But also, like Hebrik was bit by Grylan and the rats, so we don't ever hear about him getting over the sickness. Like we know that he was ill afterwards, but then we didn't hear anything about it after that. So there's so many things going on with Hebrik that I'm almost starting to like lose track of what's going on and like what it means.
Just have to take it week by week here.
I guess we'll just have to keep going. But yeah, it was
no other choice.
It was a really cool section. Just the ambiance and the eeriness of just completely shrouded in darkness. You got these four people that don't really like each other, kind of all huddled around, and then Felsen just kind of goes into this like meditative trance almost and starts speaking. So yeah, the only light source being a book.
I feel like that doesn't bode well for you.
Probably not. That's okay. I'll take it off the chin.
Might have to.
Anyway, I guess up to you. I'm ready to go. Do you have any other comments for this section?
No, sir. I am ready.
With the dawn fast approaching, Icarium led the others to the edge of the warren. Fiddler readied his crossbow and handed Crocus a lantern. He looked over to Mappo, who was looking at the barrier. Mappo tells everyone that the barrier cannot be seen through, or you cannot see through the barrier. Iskarol is talking to himself about how the group knows nothing of what will come. Fiddler gestures with his crossbow, telling Poost that he goes first. Poost makes a show of being the first one in, and how the group continues to be deceived by him. Crocus gets sick of his shit and takes the lantern and walks through the opaque barrier. Icarium is the next through. Fiddler pushed Poost through the barrier. As Fid and the high priest disappeared through the barrier, Mappo turned to Apsalar and Relic and said that they had been through before, as the Warren's aura clings to both of them. Relic nods and explains that it was because of the false trail that they had set. Mappo shifts his gaze to Apsalar, where he asks what Warren this was. Apsalar says that she doesn't know, but she could indeed tell it was torn apart, and there was no hope in determining its motivation in its current state. She elaborates that there is nothing in her memories of such a warren destroyed. Rolling his shoulders, Mappo wonders why they should assume that the elder warrens that they knew of were the only ones that existed. They passed through the barrier. The trail stood with the others, surrounded by tall trees with moss covering most things. The air smelled of dead vegetation and dead insects. A large boulder, taller than Icarium, rose from the earth directly ahead of them. With the glow from the sun, the group could see that there were carvings on the rock. The base and sides were covered in bloody hand and paw prints. Mappo thought to himself, the path of hands. He turned to Poost and asked if this was more of the high priest's deceit. Poost rambles about the stone being bleached from another world's sun, and that it was free of moss and lichen. Poost tells the Trell that he is dense beyond belief. Then Poost gives Mappo a shit-eating grin and asks of the Trell how he could move such a heavy boulder. Those carvings, how could he have faked those? Icarium confirms that the carvings are Talan and appear to be like those you find at a sacred Talan Sight. Icarium points out that the Deivers and Soul Taken wouldn't pay attention to this out-of-place rock. Poost has an outburst that interrupts Icarium from continuing on. Poost then wonders why he hasn't continued. Icarium states that it was because he was interrupted. Poost goes on another tirade about stuffing his outrage into a bag like the one the Trell carries. What a curious sack that was. Is there another fragment trapped inside it? Poost is certainly certain. He suddenly whirls around and looks at the forest beyond the boulder. Icarium asks if the high priest had heard something. Iskaril Poost doesn't give them a straight answer. Mappo asks Apslar how far into the forest they had been. She responded that they didn't go that far in. Fiddler said that he would take point. The group had no other choice. They made their way to the forest beyond. Fiddler scouted ahead with Icarium right behind him. Mappo was unsure if he would be able to have the speed to defend against the threat, so he got out his bone mace. Mappo wonders back to what Poost had said about the fragment of this Warren being inside his bag. The group made their way into the forest. Mappo observed that there was little signs of wildlife. Eventually, they made their way to the edge of the forest. Beyond it lay a dark plain. Fiddler halted everyone and asked if any of them had any thoughts on the barren, rolling plain ahead. Icarium crouched down and placed a hand on the twisting of serpent-like roots that stretched off into the distance. The jag straightened and said, "Azath." Fiddler muttered, "Tremolo." Mappo said that he's never seen an Azath manifest itself this way. Inside his head, he confirms that he's seen certain staves, though, of wood manifest in this way. Crocus responded to Mappo's statement by saying that he had seen an Azath manifest itself this way back in Jerujistan. Mappo doesn't really acknowledge this, but rather asks Icarium whatever else he had sensed. Icarium tells them that he sensed resistance and pain. The Azath was under siege. This fragmented warren sought to pull itself from the house's grip. And now, added with the threat of the Soul Taken and Deivers, Tremolor is aware of those who seek it. Poost could be heard cackling at this, but ducks from a glare from Crocus. Fiddler asks if that included them. Icarium said aye. Mappo added that the Azath would do what it could to defend itself. Fiddler said that they should stop here for the night. Poost explained that they shouldn't and that they should move on. Fiddler, being wise, said that whatever is out there can wait. What'd you think?
I think you did a really good job.
Thanks, man. Okay. So, again, kind of another section that is a little confusing. Like, there's a lot of information that's going on and a lot of things where I feel like the closure is starting to come. You know what I mean? Like, all of the questions that we've had throughout the entire book are now just kind of starting to be revealed, if that makes sense, like in a more direct way. So yeah, that we just more or less have to keep reading on to really fully understand it. I almost feel like things are just on the tip of your tongue. You know what I mean?
I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, like it's so close. It's just on the tip of your tongue. The first thing that I had was about the false trail that they set. And this false trail was clearly for the Deivers and Soul Taken, which, from what I'm gathering, are all like essentially trapped in the Azath, right? Like there is no coming out of it, is my headcanon around it. And in the third section, Duiker is talking to Nether about the Warrens being cleared up. And I wonder if this has something to do with that. Like the Azath is under siege, it seems. So is the Azath essentially taking out the Soul Taken and Deivers? And is that potentially a reason why the Warrens are cleared up?
Could be.
Well, what do you think?
I don't know if the like soul taken and divers are being like. It feels weird to think about it like like the thing that sucks the ghosts in Ghostbusters, but that's kind of almost what it seems like, right?
What about? Yeah, the ghost trap.
Yeah, but I don't. I guess I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure. Is it that simple?
Maybe. I mean,
I mean, maybe.
I guess
Yeah.
there's gotta. There's not an infinite amount of soul taken and divers out there, right? Like, there has to be an end to the convergence. There has to be a point.
Well, I don't know. Let's say they're born, not made. So as long as they're procreating, I guess there could be an infinite amount.
Maybe. Yeah, I guess I never thought about that.
But yeah, it's not necessarily a fast process.
Right. And I mean, this convergence has been going on for at least 7 or 8 months now. I mean,
been a
that's
bit.
just roughly putting things together.
Yeah.
And I think it took him a year to get from Genebacus to Seven Cities. So, but I definitely I don't know how you feel, but I definitely think Shadow Throne is behind the convergence. Like that I'm 100% about. I definitely feel like they have staged that.
I don't feel like I'm very good at like deciphering those things, so I'll just say sure.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's a little bit of an explanation later on that we could talk about here. The Trell. So the Trell, when he was standing with the others and surrounded by tall trees with like moss covering most things, the air smelled of dead vegetation and dead insects. For whatever reason, this reminded me of like my senses around this area around the Vathar, the river Vathar. So, like the dead insects makes me think of like the river of butterflies, and the dead vegetation, as well as like tall trees with moss covering most things. Like, do you think that's me just overthinking or overreaching, or is that a possibility?
I don't know. I guess it could be a coincidence, but I guess I don't know for sure.
Anyway, we'll move on to this out of place rock.
Sorry to give you an answer without giving you an answer.
That's fine. I mean, it for whatever reason, it reminded me of like what I imagined the Vathar might smell like, I guess. And I mean, again, they are essentially, from what we understand from List's dreams, is they are coming to a section that essentially has no history. And what if, for whatever reason, that is linked to the Azath? Because the chain of dogs, and I guess unless that was just Poost talking bullshit again, seems to be some type of Shadowborn prophecy.
You never know with Poost.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, this rock. This rock that has like the carvings of the Talan on it. And I feel like I want to say that this boulder was indeed moved there intentionally, because the sun bleached rock statement makes me think it's from Raraku. And I guess my question to you is, do you think that Poos put the rock here? Or do you think that there's another reason why this rock that's out of place is here, but yet the Divers and Soul Taken don't know any better?
I guess I don't know how it would have got there, but I didn't put a lot of thought into it either.
Gotcha. I think that it was intentionally moved there. I think that Poost put it there, or he had help putting it there.
I guess I'm not against that idea, but it wasn't something I guess that I was hung up on.
Cool. All right.
Not to rain on your parade there.
No,
sir.
I mean, I'm not hung up on it. I just think that it's interesting. Like, I think it's just I think it's a detail. The fragmented Warren being inside the Jaghut's bag. I mean, we kind of knew that there was a Warren in there from like the witches or the nameless ones or whatever. And, at face value, I understand what that means, but I'm wondering if somehow this Warren and the fragmented Warren in Mappo's bag are the same. I don't know what that specifically means, but is it possible that the Warren that is broken inside of the Azath here is also the same Warren that is in Mappo's bag?
That's interesting. I mean, maybe.
Is this potentially where the nameless ones come from? Or is this the nameless one's Warren?
I think that would maybe be more likely.
Because Mappo has said, Mappo, like when, Crocus gives his like Gerugistan, like, no, wait, I've seen Azath represent themselves as like twisting vines and serpentine vegetation. I almost kind of get the image of Jumanji when the house is being overrun by like vines and stuff. Like that's what I'm imagining, And when they come
That's
back,
actually genius.
yeah, the whole house is just covered in vegetation. That's kind of what I'm imagining is going on with the Azath. So, yeah, Mappo has thought that like, well, I've never seen the Azath like this, but I have seen certain like staves that the nameless ones used to carry around. So I think that in some way, shape, or form they're related. I can't really it can't really go any further than that because I don't know. I don't have enough info.
Yeah, I don't know.
The only other thing that I thought was interesting that kind of pointed out it to me is that when they're talking about or Icarium's talking about the Azath being under siege, the fragmented warren sought to pull itself from the house's grip. I really was hung up on that because, like, we know what houses are, right? Like, Shadow Throne is a house, Hood is a house. So, this Azath, essentially, it seems like it's enslaved to a house's grip. And I wonder, again, if this has something to do with Shadow Throne, because from what I understand, Kellenvet and Dancer used this Deadhouse all the time, right? To like portal skip or whatever the fuck they were doing. And, like, what if they just kept it after they ascended? Or maybe this is how they ascended.
That would have been sneaky of them, wouldn't it?
Uh-huh. I don't know. Maybe, yeah, I don't, dude, I don't fucking know, man. There's just so much gold and I can't make a brick out of it,
I've never heard that saying before.
I just made it up.
Oh, well, it was good. I liked it.
Thanks.
Makes sense why I'd never heard it before.
Right. But here's the part. Yeah, there's so much good stuff here, and I guess I'm excited to move on because hopefully we're nearing the clarity.
I hope so. I mean, it feels like it.
But I mean, I guess I know I was really confused in Gardens of the Moon about the Azath, but I feel like this adds a little bit of a character to it, right? Like we know that it's feeling pain and that it's like defending itself desperately from what I'm imagining is the D'Ivers and Soul Taken and whoever else is seeking it,
Right. Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
You want to move on or do you want to pick it up some other night?
I think we should power through.
Okay.
I want to keep reading.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, this next one's really short.
Yep, and I didn't really have anything for it, but were you done with your thoughts there? You had a lot of good thoughts, and I'm sorry I didn't really have anything to like add to it.
No, it's okay. I mean, they're pieces of information that can't really be added to. I find them curious.
So you set me up for failure. Perfect.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I'm just kidding.
I know you are.
All right. Well, the camp was a scattered mess with bedrolls strewn here and there. Mappo watched all the others lay down until only he and Relic remained awake. Mappo asked him, why did he follow the commands of Poost? Why draw his daughter into all of this? Relic struggled to find a reply, but managed to say they were spared, and he was given his arm. Mappo acknowledged that he had given this reason before, and he didn't mean to offend him. He only wanted to understand. Relic said she ain't what she was. Not my little girl, no. What's done is done, and there's no going back. Got to make the best of how things are now. And my little girl, she knows things. Terrible things. But there's still a child in there. I can see it. Looking at Mappo, he said, all that she knows, well, knowing ain't enough. It ain't enough. I can't explain it. Mappo said he understood so far. Relic continued, and with a sigh he said she needs a reason. a reason for everything. It's my feeling anyways. I'm her father, and I say she's got more learning to do. It's no different than being out on the water. You learn no place is safe. Relic rose and said Mappo made his head hurt. Mappo asked for forgiveness. Relic said one day, if he was lucky, maybe she would forgive him. They went to lay down. Mappo thought, whatever sea god looked down on Relic must have an eye fixed on its lost child.
I mean, I feel like Relic is just, he's regretting a lot of things, right? Like, I guess as a dad, if I were to, like, weirdly put myself in Relic's shoes here, right? Like, if I haven't seen my daughter in forever long, not knowing if she was alive or not, I guess I don't remember if he knew she was alive or not, but, you know, completely, like, different child, you know? Like, this doesn't seem to be the daughter that he knew. And I think he's feeling regret for maybe, like, not taking that time to just enjoy his daughter. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like he maybe would have been given assurances, though, that, like, wait, it's not going to be an easy path, but she's going to make it through.
Yeah. I just think that, in a way, Relic is regretting that he is not enough to, like, dissuade his daughter from this path that she's headed towards, because he knows that she's unprepared and she's got lots to learn, but he's not going to be able to give her that.
Yeah.
Which, at the end of the day, like, if I had a conversation like that with someone I had barely met, like, I would probably be a little peeved too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, those are my only thoughts.
I didn't really have anything else there. It was a pretty quick section. Yeah.
All right.
It was kind of nice to see, you know, Relic just kind of like you said, kind of having a little remorse for what happened with his daughter and what she's going through.
Right. And how you know, as a parent, want to be able to protect your kids. And I wouldn't say that he failed at that, because the events that possessed Absalar were out of his control.
And yeah, nothing's ever easy with that.
Yeah. Well, I suppose we should probably move on, huh? Suppose it's next section here, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Unable to sleep, Mappo heard movement behind him, and then Icarium spoke in a low voice to Absalar. Mappo heard Absalar say that her and Icarium were a lot alike. Icarium wondered how that was possible. Absalar said that they each had their protectors, who are incapable to protect. So they are dragged along, always watching, but so very helpless. Icarium is skeptical of Absalar's answer. Mappo was Icarium's companion, unlike Relic, who was Absalar's father. Absalar asked Icarium if it was really companionship or was it something else. Mappo was ready to nip this conversation in the bud. Absalar regressed and eventually agreed that Icarium was right to think that the relationships were not the same. She changes the subject and asks Icarium what he will do with his memories once he's found them. Mappo was relieved, but only for a moment. He had often wondered this question that Absalar had asked, but never dared to ask Icarium. The Jag tells Absalar that he is startled at this question, because what does she do with her memories? She explains the majority of memories are not hers. Sure, she remembers a handful of things from when she was a fisher girl. Other memories belong to a wax witch who had sought to protect her during Cotillion's possession. Finally, her last set of memories, and most confusing of all, belonged to an assassin, once mortal, but now ascendant. She goes on to explain that Dancer did not kill for coins or even cared about power. The Dancer saw himself as having integrity, and that part of him sympathizes with Lucine. She bowed to a greater need of the Empire, and so had to choose to kill her two friends to answer that need. Icarium said that within Absalar was chaos. She agreed, and said that memories are in full flood. She tells Icarium that he dreams that the memories will provide knowledge, and that knowledge will provide answers. But for every answer, there are 1,000 more questions. She said that memories are a weight you can never shrug off. Icarium, in a stubborn tone, replies that he would happily accept that burden. Absalar, quick to pick up on the Jag's tone, tells him not to mention that to Mappo or risk breaking the Trell's heart further. The Trell's chest ached from holding his breath. Icarium could be heard saying that he would never do that and that he doesn't understand. Mappo let his breath loose, struggling to control himself, tears rolling down his face. Mappo could hear Icarium whisper that he didn't understand. Absalar said that he wished to, though. Icarium did not reply, and after a minute of silence, he heard movement, and then Absalar said to dry his eyes, as Jag did not cry. What a thought-provoking section, and super, super sad, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it we kind of get a little bit of, I guess, insight on Lysine, that it sounds like she didn't want to betray Kellenvet and Dancer, right?
Right.
Or, whatever happened there.
It is really interesting because it does shed a little bit of light onto Lysine, and it really makes it seem like she didn't have a choice. But I'm curious as to what exactly were the what was the greater need of the Empire? I'm sure that's not anything that will get revealed, and that'll be something that kind of gets revealed as we go through the series. But I can't off the top of my head fathom what that need would have been.
I don't know that there's anything at this point in the story for us reading it the first time that would point to what that greater need is. Maybe somebody who's read through the series, maybe there's something to pick up on, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But I guess maybe this is how Lee is feeling and why he calls himself a Lysine apologist. Maybe this is just a small insight as to what that could be and why he feels
it could be.
I don't know. The other thing that I thought was really peculiar is when Icarium and Absalar are talking about the similarities between their protectors. And Mappo was at the point where he was about ready to get up and stop the conversation. But he doesn't, because Absalar doesn't go further with that. And I'm wondering, purely based on the way that Mappo reacted to this inquisitive nature of Absalar, with Mappo and Icarium's relationship being similar to Absalar's and her father's. And I'm are they related? Is it possible that Icarium is half Jaghut and half Trell, which may explain why he's been tasked to follow him around in some way, shape, or form?
I guess I don't get the sense that they're related, but I mean, you never know.
I mean,
I don't know.
It's the beautiful part about Erickson's writing is that we don't know, but I don't know why he would have put this in here. I don't know why he would have said Mappo would have if Mappo wasn't afraid of where that similar conversation was going about relationships. I don't know what else it would be. Maybe Mappo is just so hurt because it's his brother. He's watching his brother forget about him. Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I get this weird feeling that there's definitely something more to the relationship. If it's purely just friendship and I'm way off on the related part, cool. I thought that was just a weird thing to write in there, I guess. Not weird as in it doesn't make sense, but weird as in ooh, is that telling us something?
Sure. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
I guess we'll just have to see how that pays off later on.
Right. And then one of the other things that I had about this particular section was when, Icarium kind of stubbornly replies that he would happily accept the burden of basically for every answer that he gets, there's 1,000 more questions. And I feel like the group that they're with, Fiddler, Absalar, Relic, Icarium, Poost, they all have an understanding about what happened or what Icarium did. However, as the readers, I feel myself aligning with Icarium, as it hasn't been quite revealed what he has done. Like, we know that he's destroyed, probably leveled nations. We, like Icarium, we only have bits and pieces or even speculation. And thinking about that kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, he's it is a weird thing because, I mean, you do kind of sympathize and empathize and feel some pity for Icarium. And now we're kind of slowly getting this reveal, like you said, that he's done some pretty terrible things.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And, Icarium doesn't have any memories of it, but, he is the one that helped. His hand is the one that dealt the damage, So just because he doesn't remember, he's still just as guilty, right? Like, people are still going to look at him like he's a monster.
Yeah. It's just because you don't remember doesn't get you off the hook.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, those are the only few tidbits that I really picked out in this section. The last thing I'll say that, and we talked about it a little bit, but, just the headcanon about both of these guys just crying in silence, more or less, at the same time from the same conversation is just, it was heart-wrenching to read, but even more to summarize it, because I had to linger on that heartache for a bit.
Yeah, I suppose that wouldn't be easy. But yeah, it was, I think, heart-wrenching is probably the right word for it that she used there. Just reading through that, it was that.
Yes, it was. All right. Well, I mean, outside of that, I don't have anything else. I don't know if you did. I'm cool to move on.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think I had anything else there. Nice job summarizing that.
Thanks, sir.
Section 12 here. Mappo was unable to sleep and suspected others struggled as well. Poost seemed to be the only one at rest based on his snoring. Soon Mappo heard sounds of movement. He heard Icarium speak calmly. It is time. Camp was disassembled quickly. Mappo was drawing his sack tight when Fiddler set out. Cautiously, yet determined, looking at the battlefield. Icarium was set to follow. Mappo grabbed his arm. He said the Azath house seeks to imprison all who possess power, and asked if he understood what he risked. Icarium smiled back and said it was not just him, and he underestimates himself. What he, or Mappo, had become after all these centuries, and that they must trust in the Azath, understanding that they mean it no harm if they are to continue. Everyone else had already set out. Apsalar spared a glance back at the two friends, yet leaving them alone. Mappo asked how they could trust something they don't understand. Icarium said, aware. How is it aware? What exactly is aware? Icarium is honest and says he has no idea, but he can sense a presence. If he can sense it, then it can sense him. Tremolor suffers. It fights alone, and its cause is just. He means to help the Azath, and so Tremolor has no choice to make. Tremolor has a choice to make. Accept his help, or not. Mappo struggled to hide his nervousness from his friend, and he thought that Icarium offered help without realizing how quickly it could turn on him. In his ignorance, he is pure and noble. He thought that if Tremolor knows Icarium better than Icarium knows himself, will it dare accept his help? Icarium asked his friend what was wrong. Mappo had to turn away. He could not look at his friend in the eye, and he thought more to himself. I would speak to warn you, friend. Should Tremolor take you, the world would be free of a vast threat. But I lose a friend. No, I betray you to an eternal imprisonment. The elders and nameless ones who set upon me this task would command me with certainty. They would care nothing of love, nor would the young trail warrior who so freely made his vow hesitate, for he did not know the man he was to follow, nor did he possess doubts. Not then, so long ago. He spoke to Icarium, begged him for them to turn back. The risk was too great. He felt tears come to his eyes as he looked across the plain, and he thought to himself some more. At last, dear elders, I am revealed to you. You chose so wrongly. I am a coward. Icarium spoke slowly, saying he wished that he could understand the war Mappo fought inside, for it breaks his heart. Icarium said Mappo must realize by now. Hardly able to speak and unable to meet his eyes, Mappo asked, realize what? Icarium continued, that I would give my life for you, my only friend, my brother. Mappo hugged himself and whispered, "No, don't say that." Icarium asked him to help him end his war. Drawing a breath, Mappo spoke. "The city of the First Empire, the one upon this old island, destroyed. By your hand, Icarium. Yours is a blind rage, a rage unequaled. It burns fierce, so fierce that all of your memory of what you do is obliterated. I watch you. I have watched you, stirring in those cold ashes, ever seeking to discover who you are. Yet here I stand at your side, bound by a vow to prevent you from ever committing such an act again. You have destroyed cities, entire peoples. Once you begin killing, you cannot stop until all before you is lifeless." Icarium said nothing, and Mappo could not dare to look at him. His emotions were a storm within, and he was fighting with all his strength to hold it back. Icarium spoke, "And Tremolor knows. The Azath can do naught but take me." Mappo thought to himself, "If it is able, in your anger you may destroy it." Speaking, Mappo told him, "I believe this warren shaped you. After all this time, you have returned home." Icarium said, "Where it began, so shall it end. I go to Tremolor. I cannot walk free with this knowledge. You must see that, Mappo." Mappo said, "If Tremolor takes you, you will not die. You will be eternally imprisoned. Yet you shall be aware." Icarium said that it was a punishment worthy of his crimes. And Mappo cried out. Icarium asked Mappo to walk him to his prison. He said he must not be allowed to resist. Mappo begged him, but Icarium pushed the issue. "Do what a friend would do. Free yourself. If I am to be so presumptuous as to offer you a gift in return, we must end this." Mappo shook his head and thought himself a coward, that he should strike him down and drag him far away from here. He will not remember, and he can take him far away, and things can be as they were before. Icarium told Mappo to rise. The others were waiting. "Rise, Mappo. One last task." Icarium helped Mappo to his feet and said, "I cannot call you friend otherwise." Gasping, Mappo said that was unfair. Icarium said yes. It appears that he must make him what he seems to be. Let anger be the iron of his resolve. Leave no room for doubt. He was always too sentimental anyways, Mappo thought, that even Icarium's attacks with words were kindly said. Icarium said that the others were shaken by what they had seen and wondered what they should tell them. Mappo thought that he was still a child in many ways, and that the others already knew. Icarium spoke, saying, "Come now, my home awaits this prodigal return."
Damn, dude. So Mappo just finally decides to spill the bean.
Kind of a heavy burden to just drop off.
Right.
It kind of, I didn't really have many, I guess, talking points on this section. I didn't have anything jotted down, but I mean, that one was kind of the big, I guess, mic drop moment, right? I mean, it was kind of that moment, like, for sure we get the reveal of what he had done and how, like, vicious he was or can be. And it was, I mean, heartbreaking, heart-wrenching. It was a lot of things, a lot of emotions there.
Right. Well, the big thing that I got out from this section is, you remember in Gardens of the Moon how Lorne, how the fuck did I forget her name already? Lorne took the Finist, right? She took the Finist from Reyes in his tomb. But what happened to that Finist?
Got destroyed by the Azath.
I was under the assumption that it became the Azath.
Or it got, like, enveloped in it or something. I guess I don't know.
Remember a few chapters back, or it might even been in this one, where Crocus was just like, yeah, I've seen something similar to this. I think it was this chapter. I've seen something similar to this back in Jerujistan when, an Azath was born out of a Finist or whatever. Or Jagdhut's Finist.
I guess I didn't take it as it, like, became it. It
took it.
It took it, and I think kind of like how Mappo says, he's going to be imprisoned with it, but he's going to be, like, aware of what's happening.
Right. So here's where I'm thinking, right? So I think that this Azath enveloped Icarium's Finist, right? And that is why he is returning home. He will then be complete, right? But back when the Finist and Icarium were separated, this is why he loses all his memories, as well as his power as well, right? Because remember back in Gardens of the Moon, once the Jaghut, or once Reyes gets a hold of his Finist, he will be pretty much unstoppable, which reminds me a lot of Icarium's rage and fury. It's pretty much to the point where it's unstoppable. So that's my take on this section, is that this Azath is where Icarium's Finist lies. And once they become whole, there really isn't any stopping Icarium.
So what do you think is going to happen to him?
I think that
do you think he's going to be like successful and like
he's going to be imprisoned, right? Because Azath,
you think that's what will happen?
Right, because Azath take all that's powerful, right? So in Gardens of the Moon, it took Reyes Finist and imprisoned it. But yeah, anyway, I think that Icarium's going to get imprisoned, but I think he's also going to get his memories back. But it doesn't seem like that's the way that it's going. I don't think that like Icarium is like willing to battle the Azath. I think that he's willing to help it. So based on those like good intentions, whereas Reyes wants to destroy everything.
Yeah.
I think that the Azath is not going to imprison him.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he's not going to be imprisoned, but I feel like at the same time I wouldn't be surprised if he was.
Yeah. It's funny how a lot of these sections, even though none of them really have anything to do, they're not like a direct reference to Gardens of the Moon, but like there's a lot of little things that happen that kind of like make you go back and think about the previous book. And that was just one of them when I read this section. Not the first time. I clearly didn't put that together, but when I read it the second time, I was just like, oh, I just remember the whole Reyes and the Finist and the Azath. I remember being confused by it, but like understanding it enough. But I think that this is what's happening here. Is the Azath?
I can get on board with that.
Yeah, the Azath took Icarium's power, which is why he's deadly, yes, but he's not uncontrollably just leveling things because he feels like it. You know?
Yeah, maybe he didn't take all of his power, but right. I don't know.
Well, and you know, going back to however many chapters ago when Fiddler and Mappo were talking, and Fiddler was just like, yeah, the Icarium that I'm seeing right here is not the one that I've been hearing about through tomes and legends and rumors and shit. So I think that there's definitely two pieces here, which that's also too. So, but yeah, that was the big thing that like came to my mind. Outside of the fact that like poor Mappo is just like pouring his heart out here, like he just cannot take it anymore. He just has to let it off his chest, you know?
Yeah, what a big thing to like unload on somebody, onto your like best friend. Like,
right.
Yeah, it would suck. You feel bad for him that he had to do that.
But yet Icarium still doesn't know what battle's inside of Mappo, you know? And to me, I think it's clear that, you know, the Nameless Ones chose him to follow Icarium around. And in doing so, Icarium ended up being his best friend. And it sounds like the Nameless Ones, their intention was to get Icarium imprisoned with his Azath, within the Azath, which also coincides with where his Finist is, you know? I don't know.
I kind of felt like, you know, when Mappo told him all this, that maybe he doesn't know everything, but it probably gave him a pretty good idea as far as why he was having such a hard time. Like, that's a pretty big truth to reveal. And, well, I mean, yeah, there's certainly still more to it. That probably gives him a good enough idea to understand most of his feelings.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, I've been in situations where, like, you know, I knew something and, you know, one of my friends wanted me to tell them, and I'm like, I knew it would, like, crush them. And so you just get into this mode where you're like, oh, well, shit, do I just unload and, like, you know, So it's a hard situation to be in, and as a human, you could totally empathize with where Mappo is.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't want to have been in that position.
No. But I mean, I feel like that's the biggest thing. I can't really say. I feel like that whole section was catered around Ikariam and Mappo's relationship and some of the motivations that got each character here, as well as some speculation. So I think that's where it's going now. I think that's where it's gonna go.
All right. I wouldn't be surprised by that if that's what turned out to happen.
Right.
But I also would not be surprised by some sort of curveball coming our way either.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Yeah. Cool. Well, if you don't have anything else, I'm cool to move on if you are.
No, go ahead.
It had come, Fiddler said as they arrived. Mappo in turn looked to see every face, and the expression on each face told stories of their own. Poost's wrinkled face had a feverish grin on his face, fear, anticipation, and a host of other emotions only Poost could explain. Apsalar seemed to be staring at Ikariam as if he were an opponent, setting any sympathy aside she had once held. Her uncertainty of her skills now showed for the first time. Relic's eyes showed resignation. He was aware of the threat to his daughter. Kraka seemed to have no expression on his face, and Mappo wondered about the lad's certainty of himself. Mappo wondered which part of Ikariam Krakus admired. They stood on a hill. The roots were chaotic beneath their feet. Mappo thought to himself that somewhere below was an ancient creature that had been imprisoned. Ahead, the landscape changed, and the roots on the ground met and rose to form walls, a maze of twisted roots. Ikariam spoke to everyone, saying that if the Azath should take him, assist the Azath by any means necessary. Poost yells and calls him a fool, as the Azath needs Ikariam first. The Deivers and Soul Taken converging. Poost and his god have done all they could. Ikariam grimaced at Poost, and then turned to the Trell and asked if he could fight without all the rage. Mappo said that Ikariam possesses a threshold. Fiddler told Ikariam to hold himself back until they've all done what they can do. The sapper readied his crossbow. Krakus then turned to Poost and snapped at him, telling Poost that this included him and his god. Poost laughs at this, and Krakus advances on him with the dagger to the high priest's throat. Krakus tells him to call his god, because they need more help. Poost started to explain the risks, but was interrupted as Krakus finished the line by saying that risks are greater if you just stand back. Mappo held his breath, fathomed by how well Krakus understood the situation. Silence followed. Ikariam stepped back, shaken. Mappo thought to himself that yes, his friend, you possess that much power. Poost whimpered, unforeseen, and all that would be freed, and to let go of him. Krakus stepped back, and Poost called upon his god. He narrates Shadow Throne contemplating and thinking. The high priest spun and stared at the forest behind them. A distant howl was heard, and Poost smiled. Apsalar muttered that she didn't think Poost had it in him. Ooh, Krakus got some balls.
Yeah, it does. He's kind of seems like he's done taking shit.
I think so. And I think it's really cool to just see how much he's grown in confidence since the last book. Like he always seemed to have had to rely on what everybody else thought about what he should do. And I think the loss of Mammoth has kind of like helped him mature a little bit, because he really is on his own.
Forced him to grow up a little bit.
Yeah. And the part with Mappo wondering which part of Ikariam Krakus admired, I think that this is in relation to rage-filled Ikariam or like sympathetic, empathetic, kind, nurturing, caring Ikariam. Kind of like what I was saying in the last section about Fiddler and Mappo talking about the things that he's heard about the Jag and the things that he saw. I think Mappo is kind of contemplating, Krakus really looks up to him, but I wonder which one he looks up to,
Sure. Yeah, which, yeah. I don't get the sense that Crocus probably knows all these other details.
Right.
Maybe he has a few ideas, but...
Well, and he seems to, I think you're alluding to like him, or like the part where Mappo was holding his breath and kind of baffled by how well Crocus understood the situation, because clearly they are all anticipating Icarium to be reunited with what I had to guess was Finished, right? And therefore, in the event that he gets all rageful again, they're going to need as much help as they can get, which includes Poost and his god.
And what comes after.
Right. I don't know. We'll just that is totally a Raffo moment. But yeah, they're anticipating the worst is what's going on here. I think in Icarium's mind, I think that what he's doing is he's trying to get the best of both worlds. Like, he wants his memories back, but he doesn't want to be, a rageful asshole about it.
Which is fair, right?
So I think that what is ultimately coming is Icarium reunites with his Finished, thus, like, combining the pieces, and his Warren becomes whole again. But then I think that they're anticipating it to battle the Azath, and I think that they think that Icarium could beat the Azath, but then that doesn't make any sense as to why the Nameless Ones would want him there. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. There's something deeper there. What it is, I will just have to keep reading.
Well, we'll finally get to here pretty quick.
Yes. Yeah. The only other thing that has got me a little bit stumped is, what is it that Shadow Throne sees as beneficial here? Because clearly they didn't plan on joining them, but now Shadow Throne, the god, seems to be contemplating the situation. But you would have thought that they would have already prepared for that, because nothing changed in them getting there. So what is it? You know what I mean? What gain? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what he thinks he can gain out of it. I'm not sure.
And why would Shadow Throne offer to help in the event that Jaghut, or in the event that Icarium, goes all rageful?
I'm not sure.
So, yeah, I guess we'll just have to keep reading. But I just thought that was an interesting thing to bring up.
Yeah, I don't know if unless somehow he's thinking he can get back at, Quick Ben. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Maybe. I don't know. That's a great question. I guess we'll just have to find out. Read and find out.
Right.
But, yeah, I don't really have any other thing. The only thing that I could think of is, the tension at the beginning of the section was thick. Mappo just studying everybody's expression. They're here, I feel like within the next chapter or two, we're going to get whatever confrontation this is. So, yeah, I'm excited to keep reading.
Definitely. Yeah. It's definitely building up pretty quick here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But yeah, I'm good if you're good.
Sure. 5 hounds of shadow emerged from the woods like a pack of wolves, even though each was the size of a pony. As if in mockery, the hound, without sight, named Blind, led the pack. Her mate, Baran, was to her right. Gear and Shan flanked, and even though Rude was the leader, brought up the rear of the pack. Mappo shook and said he thought there were 7. Apslar told him that Animander Rake killed 2 of them on the Rivi Plain when he demanded that Cotillion release possession of her body. Crocus was surprised and said he didn't know that story. Mappo, surprised at Crocus's surprise, asked if he knew Animander Rake, the Lord of Moonspawn. Crocus casually said they had met once. Mappo said one day he would like to hear that story. Crocus nodded in reply, and Mappo thought to himself that he was a fool if he thought they would live long enough to tell the tale. In all of Mappo and Icarium's travels, they had never run across the Hounds of Shadow. Even still, Mappo knew their names and how they were described. Though the hound he feared most of the pack was Shan, it was Shan's sleek appearance and the way she moved that gave him cause for concern. While the others appeared to be brawlers, Hers was the approach of an assassin, a true killer. Poost spoke and said the hounds are not displeased. Mappo looked to Icarium, who said he welcomed them, and they will not speak of it any longer. Silently, the hounds fanned out, encircling the group. Poost cackled and said, "Into the maze we go!" At that moment, a scream came from the distance. The hounds picked up on it and perked up, but were unconcerned with it. Poost broke into another jig, but was quickly stopped by Baran's head and shoulder as the hound batted him to the ground. Fiddler offered a hand to help Poost up and told the priest that he had annoyed his god. Poost gasped, "Nonsense! Affection! The puppy was so pleased to see me it became overexcited." The group continued to the maze, the sky the color of iron.
You made me choke on my smoke when you started doing your Poost at first. Was not expecting that. That was good. Into the maze we go!
Oh, I got to try to bring a little life to it, right?
No, that was good. That was good. So what do you think of these Hounds of Shadow showing up? Not that we didn't know based on the last section, but...
I think they're probably going to fuck up some divers and soul taken, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many of them are going to survive it. Maybe they all will. Maybe they'll lose a couple. I don't know. I think the way that he's pointing out, Sean will probably play a pretty big role, I would think.
Yeah, because I think the goal is to help the Azath defeat the Soul Taken and Divers so that it can battle with Icarium.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I think it's going to be quite the conflict that pops off here.
Absolutely. It was a very informational section. I didn't really have anything that I could pick apart. Not really pick apart, but I mean, it was cool to see the Hounds show up again. I mean, I feel like we haven't had them since, near the end of Gardens of the Moon in their confrontation with Commander, so
I think Poost is just being a dumbass because I don't think it was overexcited when it knocked him over. I imagine that was probably on purpose.
Probably. Weird anecdote about the Hounds is, the cover art for House of Chains has 7 dogs, but I thought 2 of them died.
Well, maybe they're all going to die, and they'll be in the wherever the other 2 went. I don't know.
Maybe. I just thought that was weird, and I'm almost kind of wondering if really, remember how Paran, made them jump through a warren or whatever with inside Animator Rake's thing?
Yes, I am remembering that. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see how that...
Maybe he unintentionally let them go free, and they're plunging around some warren.
They're probably running around somewhere, but yeah, that was the last we heard of them.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that was your last section. Here's my last section. I was
just saying, you got kind of pounded here on this one.
It's okay. I am seeing it as an opportunity to work on me understanding battles, and I think it's definitely helping. I did, however, after I read this chapter the first time, I watched a video by that one dude. I always forget his fucking channel name. He did.
Yeah, we should probably remember to link that in the description or something.
Yeah. So that was super helpful to kind of understand. And as I was reading this chapter, I was able to put those pieces in visually. So, which then ultimately helps me write a better summary because I am a visual person.
Well, there you go. And this battle very different from the other 2.
Oh, absolutely. Very visceral. And I was proud of myself because I got it down to a little over 2.5 pages, where usually something like this would have taken me 3.5, 4 pages to write, maybe.
Yeah, it was a pretty lengthy section for sure. So
yeah, it was about 10 pages, I think. It was 11 pages at the end. But
damn.
I guess without further ado, here I go.
All right.
Gessler walked down to where Duiker, Bolt, and Captain Lull were drinking some weak tea. Gessler explains that they cannot fit any more on board. Lull asked how fast these undead oarsmen could get the ship to Erin. Gessler said that it would take 3 days tops, and to not worry. as he won't lose any of the wounded along the way. Gessler explains that things on the Solanda are timeless. It was an hour before dawn, and they could hear that Corbelow Dom was up to something. But because of the magical wards, the Wiccan warlocks were unable to find out what Dom was doing. Gessler tells them that Fenner guards them all. Duiker looked up to Gessler and told him to deliver the wounded. Gessler says that he will, and maybe while he's there, he can kick Nock into action and put some iron in the spine of the High Fist. Lull tells Gessler to get going because he doesn't want to see his ugly face anymore. Gessler responds that he's got some spare Tissiande eyes he could give Lull to try on. Lull declines this offer. Gessler says goodbye to Duiker and apologizes for not bringing Culp or Hebrick. Duiker assures the man that he did what he did the best he could. Gessler turns to Bolt and apologizes for breaking the Fist's wrists. Bolt says that he'll pass the message on to the Fist. Gessler rode through sludge of butterflies. Bolt, Duiker, and Lull sat around after Gessler's departure and spoke about Gessler and his antics, along with what Coltane thought about Dom's offer. Bolt gets up and leaves. Duiker and Lull have a conversation about the historian's account on the Chain of Dogs. They also converse about Duiker's relations with the female Marine. Duiker then gets up and strolls through parts of the camp. He eventually comes up to Coltane's tent, where the Warlocks and Coltane were sitting outside. Duiker could tell that Coltane had endured some forced healing. As Duiker approached, Sormo asked where List was. Duiker said that he didn't know. Sormo asked if List was possessed by visions. Duiker said that yeah, he was. The Warlock grimaced and asked questions of Duiker as to how the land was so emptied. Like its soul destroyed. It was unnatural. Duiker responded by saying that some war took place here long ago, and no memory of it remains, yet an echo remains sealed in the bedrock. Sormo asked who fought in this war. Duiker explained that this was part that has not yet been explained. A Jaghut ghost guides List. Duiker is about to ask Coltane about Dom when Tumlet comes running towards them. The noble found Coltane and explained to the Fist another emissary was brought in secret to the Council of Nobles. Tumlet explains that he tried to dissuade the nobles but failed. Tumlet explains that the nobles will cross the river with the protection of Dom. Coltane quickly spun to his warlocks and told them to get to their clans and to send Bolt and the captains to him. Shouts now rose from the Wiccans in the clearing as the refugees surged forward. Coltane found a lone soldier and told him to tell the clan warriors to get their soldiers out of the path of the refugees. There was no way they could hold them back. Bolt and the captains arrived, and Coltane gave them their orders. Those orders made it clear to Duiker that Coltane was preparing for the worst. The Fist turned to Duiker and instructed him to tell the sappers that they are to join the mass of refugees, but they are to look the part of refugees. Duiker arrived at the sappers, who were coiling some rope together. The historian informs the sappers that they are to join the refugees and that they need to remove their helmets and weapons and look like refugees. Duiker wondered what they were planning with the ropes. One of the sappers said that they made some observations of their own and to shut up so they can get ready. The mass of sappers seemed to finish their tasks at the same time. In silence, they joined the refugees at the river. Duiker hesitated and saw that the head of the refugees had pushed out into the ford. A dozen Wiccan horse warriors had been sent out ahead of the refugees to guide the column. Behind the refugees came the wagons of the nobles. Duiker looked back to where the sappers had entered the mob, but could not find them. Further up the trader track, he heard the cries of cattle being slaughtered. It was clear to Duiker that Coltane expected a rearguard defense of some kind. Still, the historian hesitated. A hand gripped his arm, and the female Marine told him that they were to assist the sappers. Duiker asks what they're assisting with as refugees are halfway across. The Marine tells Duiker to look at the heads turning to look downstream. She explains that the rebels have made a bridge, and it's filled with pikemen and archers. Duiker asks what the pikemen were doing. The female Marine says that they were watching and waiting. She urges her lover on, as the nightmare was about to begin. They both joined the mass of refugees. Duiker heard a clashing of weapons that announced that the rear guard was under attack. Duiker could not see much as the slope ahead was revealed. The entire ford was packed with refugees. Along the edges, people were being pushed into deeper waters. Duiker heard a cry of dismay as he watched heads turn to something upriver. The dozen horse warriors gained the other side of the riverbank and rode to shoot arrows into the tree line farther up the bank. Before they could do so, they were met with arrows that killed them instantly. The nobles' wagons came ashore, then stopped as the oxen were shot dead with arrows. The ford was now blocked. Panic now gripped the refugees. Duiker was helpless as he was carried down to the river. He managed a glimpse of what was upstream, another floating bridge packed with pikemen and archers. Crews of men on each bank guided the bridge with ropes. Arrows descended onto the mass of refugees as they were trapped with nowhere to go. Duiker found himself in a living nightmare. As all around him refugees were dying, the mob frantically pushed and pulled. Children vanished underfoot, trampled down under the water. A woman fell back against Duiker. He tried to catch her and brace her up, but then saw the arrow that had been driven through the babe in her arms and then drove through her chest. He cried out in absolute horror. The female Marine appeared and handed him a rope. She told him to hang on tight and to not let go. He felt the rope tighten around his wrists and he was pulled forward. Arrows rained down relentlessly, one even hitting his shoulder and one grazing his cheek. The pressure on the rope was steady, and he was pulled through the mob. He was pulled to a wagon wheel on the opposite side of the river. He could hear the arrows striking the wood of the noble wagons. The Marine commanded that he let go of the rope. Duiker took in the surroundings. The noble wagons had been moved to clear the block at the ford into a defensive position. The Marine explained so that they won't be getting any help as the rear guard is engaged in battle. Someone's got to get up and clear those woods of the archers. Duiker thought if they didn't, they would be annihilated. Duiker asked how many archers they faced. The woman Marine says that it was about 3 companies, and that she didn't think that Dom anticipated soldiers to be at the front of the refugees. Duiker puts it together that Dom knew that Coltane would deny the offer, but the nobles wouldn't. The sappers then make a move to clear the south bank of the rebel archers. She tells the historian to find some weapons and join them. Duiker says that he wants to stay here and watch. The Marine says that he would get skewered with arrows. Duiker tells her that he'll risk it. The historian found a round shield and climbed up the nearest wagon. He almost stepped on a cowering figure. He stared down at Nethpara, who begged Duiker to save him. Ignoring the nobleman, he turned his attention back to the river. He watched as the stream of refugees that reached the south bank could not go forward. They began spreading out along the shoreline, soon discovering the rope crew that held the rebels' upstream bridge still. The mob crushed this crew, despite their lack of armor and weapons. Another flaw in Dom's plan was that the arrows that had been spent on the archers on the bridge. The upstream bridge floated until it met the mob of refugees on the ford. The refugees were in a roaring rage, and when the upstream bridge drifted closer, they climbed the bridge, fighting pikemen and archers until eventually the bridge collapsed into the river. Another wave of sorcery erupted, and Duiker turned his head. He saw Sormo on his horse out in the middle of the mass. He struck the downstream bridge with sparks that cut like barbed wire. As Duiker watched, 4 arrows struck Sormo, one through his neck. The horse wheeled as it too was struck by arrows. It staggered into deeper waters. Sormo then fell from his horse, vanishing into the sludge of butterflies. His horse toppled on top of him. Duiker was breathless as he saw a thin arm reach for the skies. Butterflies flew to converge around that arm. Even though it slipped beneath the surface, the whole battle seemed to pause to watch. Duiker thought that they had finally come for Sormo's soul, the gods below. A voice rose from behind the historian. Duiker kept watching as a mound of butterflies, as high as a barrel, now gathered around where Sormo's arm had broken the surface. The voice behind him started to demand that he speak with Coltane. Arrows from Sarmo's Wiccan clan finished off the pikemen and archers on the downstream bridge. Duiker watched as infantry and the Weasel clan horse warriors rode out from the flanking woods and traveled down the northern slope to help enforce order at the crossing. Duiker climbed higher on the wagon and then took a deep breath. He shouted to everyone to gather any weapon that they could find before the archers returned. He couldn't even finish the sentence before masses of refugees took the southern forest to eliminate any archers. Nethpara came into view, still demanding to speak to Coltane. He grabbed Nethpara's scarf, pulled him closer. Duiker scolds Nethpara for the consequences of the Council of Nobles. Nethpara does not like this and insults the historian. He grabbed the nobleman's neck and started to choke the shit out of Nethpara. Someone battered his head, moved his wrists. Someone wrapped their forearm around his neck. He watched as his hands were pried from Nethpara's neck. Darkness slowly descended. Woofta.
Not Sormo.
Not Sormo.
Yeah. That kind of sucks, doesn't it?
It does kind of suck. Do you think he's gone?
I don't know. I wonder, like, if something will happen with these butterflies, the way the crows did. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. Yeah, that's weird. Like, each butterfly, like, taking a fraction of a soul. Like, what if it's like The Fly, and not all of it gets completed?
I've never seen that.
Oh.
But I hear they're remaking it, so it's something I've wanted to watch. I just haven't.
Yeah, I've seen bits and pieces. I've never, like, watched the whole movie. But
oh, well, maybe we should do that for Maura and Lee.
Do it. We'll make him watch The Fly.
Sweet.
Okay. Great. I love it when it's excited. Maura, Lee, we're watching The Fly.
A plan comes together.
There it is. The first thing that I want to talk about is when Gessler is talking about the Solanda being timeless. And it didn't really dawn on me until I summarized this, but when Gessler says that he won't lose anyone, I saw it as like death. They wouldn't lose anybody to dying, on their trip to Erin. Whereas before, I thought it was being like tossed overboard or like something silly like that. And Gessler is saying that the wounded won't die because the blood loss or infections, etc., won't spread as fast because things slow down on the Solanda. So
I mean, I guess that's kind of how I thought. I wasn't thinking in the sense that somebody was going to go overboard or something.
Yeah, that was just my first thought. I didn't really pick up that the Solanda was timeless. And, earlier in this episode, we kind of talked about, I asked you why they had barely any hair growing on their head or barely like just stubble of growth for their beards. And that's because after they, it was all singed off, they haven't had a chance to really grow any because they're on a vessel that is slowly going through time.
That's a good point. It's like time dilation, like it's like Interstellar or something.
It's like suspended animation, but just like tiny fractions of movement. But that brings me to my other thought. Is Solanda a creation of Icarium? Because he creates mechanisms that seem to deal with time.
I don't know. I guess I wasn't sure if I kind of felt like maybe it was some sort of weird like byproduct of something that happened that caused the time to be slower. I guess I didn't necessarily think that it was its like built-in purpose.
I don't know. It was just a thought, like a boat. I mean, not really a mechanism, but like, it's kind of that shade of gray.
Right.
So it was just a thought. Where it went, I don't know. I'm probably wrong.
Well,
as Jan said, sometimes there's gold. So
that's true.
Do you want to talk about your funny part? Your favorite funny part in this book? I had that. I had that down as a comment, but I will let you do the honors there.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's just a little immature, but the sword too small for the sheath. Simple humor in a time where like everything's going to shit, and you find something to laugh at, and even Duiker doesn't even really like scoff at it or anything. He's just kind of like, yeah, whatever. Like, no, that wasn't the problem.
Right. Yeah. It was funny. It was very out of nowhere. And I think with such a dark section as this one, you kind of had to have a little bit of humor before.
Yeah. You can't. Everything can't be 100% serious 100% of the time.
Right. I guess those were like the two like major points that I thought were interesting. Well, only one really. The other one was just funny. You know, what I mentioned, how dark it was. You know, it's just you've got this river, you've got this ford. Earlier in the chapter, Duiker, Gessler, Stormy, and Truth see a bunch of archers crossing the stream on like, you know, ropes, whatever the zip line ropes or whatever.
Right.
Those are the archers that are killing the oxen and basically bottlenecking the refugee crossing so that these bridges that were constructed upstream and downstream with pikes and archers on them are being, you know, basically pulled from the shoreline to get closer to the ford, and they could just inflict mayhem onto the refugees. Like, just like fucking Jesus. And
I guess I didn't think of that. That's where they were going, but that makes sense.
yeah,
I didn't put that together.
yeah. Then this was, and again, this is all stuff that I watched. You know, like I love these videos because they don't spoil anything that hasn't come yet. You know, so I absolutely loved that. It was a good visual, but just how fucking dark this was, and like, as soon as Tomblet spills the beans, like Coltane's like, fuck. Like,
Yeah, he's shit.
and for him to
Here we
just
go.
on the fly be like, Duiker, go get the sappers, make them look like refugees so that they can get ahead and form some type of defense. You know what I mean? Like, that was great. It was just on the fly genius, you know?
Yeah, just to form a plan that quick, like, and it makes me wonder if he has like contingency plans, like if something like this happens and we're going to do this, or if this situation comes up, we're going to do this, like that type of deal.
So like when you're playing chess, you're just always thinking about 2 or 3 moves ahead. And like, even if those moves don't work, what else you would do?
Yeah, but I feel like he's playing like fucking 3D chess or something. You know, he's thinking further ahead than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a tragic section, and just, you know, to hear all these people just die, it's just slowly being thinned out. And the nobles, of course, you know, they're not thinking ahead. They're just, hey, cool, they're gonna let us cross, and fuck you guys, they're gonna kill you. They want nothing to do with us. They want to kill you.
Bullshit.
Right. You couldn't smell that from a mile away.
That, you know, like when all the refugees just like finally get pissed off and, you know, they fuck up the one floating bridge boat thing, and, you know, then they go after everybody else. I've seen like a meme that relates to like D&D type stuff where it's like a barbarian, and it's like something about it's too angry to die, and that's kind of how I felt these refugees were. They're some of them obviously like died, you know, but they just got to the point where they're like too angry to care. At least they're just like, well, fuck it, we're gonna just overwhelm them with our numbers this time.
Yeah. And I wonder what type of consequences the nobles are going to have, because the nobles are the ones who told the refugees that they're crossing. You know what I mean? The refugees didn't get met by an emissary. The nobles did.
That's a good point. They should probably cut their tongues out.
Mm-hmm. So I wonder what repercussions they're going to have. And also, like, who's the one who knocked Duiker unconscious while he was choking the shit out of Nethpara?
They should have just left him alone.
That's what I was thinking. Just let him do it, you know? So I wonder if it was the female Marine.
I guess, like, reading it, I thought it was a couple people.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll find out who did it. I don't know.
It very well could have been. I mean, who really knows? But yeah, that was an awesome way to end that chapter. That was tons of setup at the beginning of it, and then you get the the final kabah.
It was a lot of fun to read, and heavy reading at times too, with the the emotional parts and reveals and stuff. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes, what happens, and what kind of butterfly effects we have going on from here.
Ooh, nice one. Yeah. I hope Sormo's not dead, but yeah, I guess any predictions for this next chapter? Anything that you could think of?
I have such a hard time making these predictions because I'm not sure.
Because it could really go anywhere, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the only thing that I feel real certain on is we know Coltane's going to keep. They're going to keep marching towards Aaron, and they're inevitably going to have more battles. But I guess I'm curious to see what happens when they get into this, the other side of the river now, where it's lifeless and everything. Yeah, I don't know how this is going to go. Their march still, because they're only like halfway there now, right? I mean,
they're a little over halfway now.
Yeah, they still, they got a long ways to go.
Right. Yeah, they still probably have another 3 or 4 months. So,
I think in the long run, I think Coltane gets him there, but he's going to die in the process.
Yeah.
And
so
then
he'll die when he gets to Aaron, like he gets injured, and then he gets to Aaron and dies.
I feel like he's gonna he'll probably die within eyesight of the city or something. He'll be able to see it, and he's gonna die, but he's gonna feel okay about it because he's I did it, and it didn't save everybody, but I saved a lot of people, and we got him here. And
so you think that's gonna happen in the next chapter, or are you just predicting?
Oh, by the end of the book? No, not in the next chapter. No, because I know this next chapter's a shorter one. It's 25 pages for us ish. But yeah, I'm just thinking longer predictions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I think that I guess as far as the next chapter goes, I think that everything's more or less gotten streamlined. Felazin, Heberic, they've been met up with Leoman and the Toblakai. Culp and Bowden are gone at this point, so that we're not following their story anymore. And then, Kalam. I think that we're going to get a little bit of Kalam on the boat in the next chapter.
That'd be cool, yeah.
We didn't get any of that this chapter. So I think he'll go back to that. And then I think this next chapter we're going to get, I have a feeling that something happens with Felazin. The way that section in this book, or, in this chapter, was hand me the book, Leoman, or Heberic, or whoever it is. So I think it would be weird to not continue on with that in the next chapter. But I've been wrong before. So
yeah, I'm sure we'll see something there. And I've kind of felt like the last few chapters we were going to get that definitive evidence on the pies, but it's got to be coming up pretty quick, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get 2 for 1 stone, 2 birds, 1 stone, and we'll get both answers.
We could.
It seems kind of silly that this all-powerful goddess has to use a book to reborn someone. Just saying.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Yep. Okay, anyway. But yeah, dude, good episode. That was fun. Probably, I would imagine, going to be about a 3.5 hour episode, if I had to guess.
Yeah, and I guess, I don't know, I don't feel like we need to hide this, but this took us two sessions to record. The first one, it got pretty late, and then I was gone for a few days for my daughter's dance competition, so we're just getting back together to finish this up now. So we got through it, though. It's just a matter of making things work. And I guess we'll see as far as what we do next. I know we're talking about starting recording for Curse of the Fallen. We'll have to kind of figure that out, how we're going to do that and work through that and mix that in and everything. But we're not giving up on Malazan by any means, but we're have a couple things going, I guess.
Yeah.
Should be fun.
But from what I've read about the first 2 chapters of Curse of the Fallen, I think that it's definitely, I see I see a lot of potential for those who like Malazan. Very well could transition to Curse of the Fallen.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Not that they're directly comparable in any shape or the form, but like, give it a shot. Follow it along with us. If you're looking for something else to read, follow along with us and see what you think. Let's have a conversation about it.
Definitely.
Yeah. Cool, dude. Well, I'm actually gonna go read. So yeah.
I don't know I'm not sure when I'll get. Probably if I don't get to start it tonight or tomorrow, it'll be Tuesday when I start the chapter. So
You said
let me know.
It was shorter, right? It was like 25-ish pages.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it was under 30.
All right. Can you believe that this many pages in Gardens of the Moon we would have been finished?
Is that about it, huh?
35 or something like that.
Well, damn. Well, we've got. I think we're under 200 left to read, right?
Yep. Yeah, 836 is when this book ends, and we're at 6.
Oh, okay. So we're like at 200 pages basically.
Yep.
So they'll go quick.
Coming down the home stretch. Yep. We've got, after this, we'll have 6 more chapters.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. It's weird, man. Like, we're about ready to start, like, we're coming close to the 3rd book.
Yeah, it's coming up quick.
And then after that, we've got, according to the publication order, we've got one of the first novellas. So that'll be fun, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've got that one.
Cool.
Well, enjoy your reading tonight. Let me know what you think without spoiling anything.
Of course, as always.
All right. Well, have a good night, sir.
Yes, you too.
Talk to you later.
Bye, man.
Bye.